All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to get things underway here with our work session. We have the Economic Development Committee here with us tonight to talk specifically about their ideas relating to Wakefield Elementary School. Before we dive right into that, I'm going to have Brian Wagner, Senior Planner, do a little introduction here.
Thank you, President McEntee. I believe it was back last November, the council asked the Economic Development Committee to start looking at Wakefield Elementary School and its possible future uses. Of the variety of surplus properties that the town currently has, this is probably the parcel with the most diverse range of potential future uses. So having EDC take a look at it from an economic development standpoint, I think is a good step. They've been talking about it at their meetings since December. A variety of ideas have been discussed, batted around, but the letter that you were presented with was the result of a very long discussion, and I'll let Larry Fish, the president of the EDC, carry it from there.
Thank you. I'm not going to go over every point. You guys, I believe, had copies of the letter for almost a month. So I'm going to just hit a couple of highlights, and then you can ask us any questions you might have on a specific point or process that we went through. Our recommendations are basically four. We believe the town should retain ownership of the property. That way, that's the easiest and quickest way to renovate the property if we so desired. To have reuse of the property immediately, so there's no degradation in the infrastructure, and it's in really decent shape, and it has all the electrical, internet, heat, that kind of thing that you'd need. Second, I think time is of the essence. I think you guys think time was of the essence because you gave us this charge and wanted it back real quick, and we put all our efforts into doing that. But with all the infrastructure around the building ripped, all the utilities, it could be immediately, like if this was Larry Fish developing a property he bought, I could have this operational in less than a week. I know the town works slower than that, but by retaining ownership and with multiple mixed uses, I think you could have it being a positive dollar generated to the town as opposed to covering the cost of heating it and electricity and everything else that you're currently paying for. It's a way to model, a way to adapt to the future. We think we've envisioned a hub. There are other hubs in the state, in Bristol and Newport, but one that serves both nonprofits in our community, such as the Wakefield Civic Band or other nonprofits, by renting out a classroom, or maybe the multipurpose room that has a stage for a theater group, that kind of thing. And because all the infrastructure is there, it would be very quick to be able to do that. You could put it into use immediately, and it would start to bring dollars into the town for a structure that's just sitting there. And the fourth thing that we talked about is the parcel. The school and Saugatucket Park is on the same parcel of land. It's one lot. We believe that it should be subdivided, separating the park from the school. And we strongly urge that the playground be included with the park. And the sledding hill, the only place in town that kids can enjoy sledding in the winter, when it ever snows, is there at Wakefield Elementary School, and we think that that should be, the line should be in there, include those two pieces in with what you now consider the park. And in this way, if down the road, the council gets an offer to buy the property and develop X, Y, and Z, it's already subdivided and it could be done very quickly. If you wanted to add other uses that we haven't endorsed right now, like housing, workforce housing, or that kind of thing, any use, because the town owns the property, can be developed much quicker, with it being government zoned. So I would like to end my portion of this with the following statement. Imagine a new grad from URI who develops a new blue or green technology in that Wakefield hub that grows to become a new manufacturing business in West Kingston, creating jobs and supporting the local tax base. So with that, I open it up to the council to ask any questions, and anybody can answer.
All right, thank you, Larry. Any initial questions? I'll sort of kick things off here. So one of the things you mentioned here, you envision a hub at this location. You mentioned like Barrington and Newport, and you said like for nonprofit and for-profit sector activities. Now, the way that those towns did it, Barrington and Newport, did they have vacant schools that they used for this hub concept? How did they sort of embrace this and move forward with this hub concept, and how is it working there now?
Both the existing ones that are, one in Bristol, I think it is, and the other one in Newport, are in older schools. It's a good template. And the first thing I would do is I'd ask them if they're interested in managing another one, because they're two separate groups. But that's not our charge. We don't have that. We did some legwork for you. I know you've gone out and gotten a consultant about the 4 different properties to analyze it. We don't have the expertise or the financial numbers to give you that kind of a presentation tonight. And I don't think we're experts at doing that. You're hiring them. But in the time that a consultant analyzing that, 7 months, 8 months, whatever it is, you could have the civic band in there practicing and charging them $300 a month to use the multi-purpose room. You could have other nonprofits paying for a classroom. And if we knew how much it costs right now, the town, to heat it, have electricity in it, then we would be able to come up with those dollars, whether it's $200 a month or $500 a month. Don't know. But next Monday, they could be in there. That's how readily available the existing structure is, and because it's all individual classroom, you could implement it very, very quickly. And even for town use, the portion of the building on the right-hand side as you're looking at it from High Street already has a separated gate, and you could use that for an annex or whatever, for whatever department doesn't have enough room. And there's a library in that section, there's a couple other classrooms, so you could have one department in one classroom, one in another. The library is double the size of a classroom. It gives you so much flexibility that immediately you could put it to reuse.
Now, Larry, do you have an idea of sort of how the Bristol and Newport are tapping into those activities that are coming to them. Are they using, the local universities? You mentioned a great idea, have URI student build the next business, which sounds amazing. But are those hubs in those towns, are they using Salve Regina getting students in? Are they using Roger Williams University? Sort of what activities, how are they getting people in there? And where are they coming from? And sort of what are they doing?
Can I
Go ahead.
inadequately answer that? Those are, the notion of using the hub model is only one aspect of what we're talking about here, and it's pretty complicated. Those hubs, the one in Bristol, has taken several years to evolve into a viable hub. But I think our interest, so I'm not sure how much we should really focus on on that standard hub idea, which also includes providing education for the entrepreneurs there, so they learn some accounting or legal things, whatever. That's what a hub traditionally does. What we meant by hub is a sort of lowercase hub of providing a centralized location in town, possibly being able to attract some existing hub to have an auxiliary outreach program in Wakefield, but not. I don't want you to focus too much on the hub, because I think a hub is a specific kind of thing and a little complicated, and so I just want that to be one part of what we're talking about. And yes, they have gone after, Food for Thought they have attracted young entrepreneurs, people who need cooking space, whatever, and it has evolved over time from one notion in the beginning into what it's becoming now, which is different and separate. But we're not here to exactly advocate for that. That's just a concept, a kind of general concept that we wanted to put forward.
And that's just a piece to the puzzle, because the last classroom down the end of the main building on the left side could be a bicycle repair place or rent bikes. It's right adjacent to the bike path. So you have multiple uses in the same building, using the same infrastructure.
And if I, thanks. One of the things we did as a committee is we talked to several people in the community who are to find out, to take a measure of whether they were in need of extra space, interested in the form of in the kind of collaboration that could happen when they were all in a community building like that. And there are some people here tonight from the community who helped us formulate that idea and are indeed interested. They need more space. They'd be interested in the kind of community collaboration that would come from rubbing shoulders with other people. And so that's our notion of hub, not necessarily teaching them how to do accounting, but allowing them to discover the synergies they have with other Wakefield endeavors.
So, okay, so are you familiar with the Hive in North Kingstown? So is that, when you talk about the synergistic type thing, that sort of makes me think of the Hive, perhaps more so than a hub? Yeah,
the Hive is a better example than a hub, in that it rents space to different groups.
Right.
To use. Yes, so you're right, yeah.
So the things that it really intrigued me about the proposal most especially were the ideas of it being, somewhat of an incubator for small business, because I really appreciate entrepreneurship, and that is my background. So one of the things that I thought about is, we have such awesome CTE programs at our high school, and we're continuing to develop them, and we have a fantastic opportunity. So if maybe we could take like some of the exceptional carpentry students, for instance, or a young artist, and do like a scholarship thing where they would be able to transition to this space, maybe to work in a studio space, and maybe even if we were able to include like some type of housing, like a studio space. I don't know if that would be at all possible, but in addition, that's something that I would really like to see. But we also need to think about how we're going to generate, I think we do. It would be nice to generate some revenue from this building, and I'm just not really sure that, I'm just not sure how much of a market there's going to be to renting out stages or classrooms, and if that need might be somehow better met with some of our other properties that we currently do own in the town. So those are just my thoughts.
I did check with the place whose name I'm not going to remember right now, up where Route 1 and Route 4 join. Shady Lee, yes, thank you. Shady Lee has a waiting list that when I called to ask whether I could rent a space there, they told me, well, if you have 5 years, maybe we can get you in here.
Oh, I like that. That makes me happy.
Okay.
So I think it's a really creative use of the property. I'm just curious how you would respond, because it's also a very valuable piece of property that can contribute to the economic vitality of the town. There is definitely interest from people who, if it were for sale, it would be purchased and then put on the tax roll. So even the amount of revenue it would generate once it comes back on the tax roll in any way, it could it's hard to not look capitalistically and go multi-million-dollar purchase to the town, and then an engine of an annual tax payment that could further. And then I think about your idea, and I think we don't know where the administration building will go, if it moves off Curtis Corner and moves into Hazard or whatever. There's another space. So I try to think what's the highest and best use, and how do you counter that argument? Because someone will say, sell it to the highest bidder and move on.
I agree with you. However,
Yeah.
that's why you have to separate the two parcels, because you can't sell the historic Saugatucket Park. Exactly. All right, that's number one. That's why that's in there. The second thing is, what you're saying, sell it to XYZ company for X number of dollars. That still can be done while you're doing this. It's going to take, well, we know how long it took Commercial Highway to be looked at, right? Years. And you're looking at years before that purchase would happen, be designed, and started to be constructed. In the meantime, this proposal right here doesn't prevent that from happening. Keep everybody on a month-to-month lease or a 3-month lease or something like that, so they know. And you could be renting it out while that other proposal, the purchase goes through, if it goes through, if it gets financed, da-da-da-da-da-da. And the years trudge along while that property is sitting there vacant, not generating anything. All that time. Don't look at it as either or. This can be implemented tomorrow. Not that anybody will make a decision tomorrow, all right? But that's how, shovel-ready isn't what the right word, but it's ready to go. Otherwise, every month goes by, more dust accumulates, and it becomes less of a viable option.
So
Sorry, just add
ahead.
one more component to that. I mean, I don't disagree necessarily with Larry in the context that it can still happen that way. But I think taking a step back into the meat of the question, it could be sold and then commercialized, and someone could do whatever they want to with it in that context. I think the idea of it being, staying within the community and being a part of the community is something, especially within where it's located, that the town can be proud of. I think it can build development down the road. I think the idea of creating a space that becomes themed and does have the opportunity to build and incubate businesses that grow, bring in students from URI to stay here and to drive that type of business opportunity, I think is a differentiator. So I think for the town, the value is in that differentiation and something that people can be proud of, and that building can stand for something for the townspeople rather than just be, a transaction. I think long-term it could drive more from an economic development standpoint than just a capitalistic transaction right now.
And
Just to be clear, I wasn't saying that that's what I wanted.
No,
but
I understand, yeah.
We can't all talk about what it's supposed to be, and no one said, well, why didn't you ever ask the question, just sell it and move on, right? I think it's clear that it makes good sense to subdivide the property, because we don't want to do that later. We could get to work on that quickly, right? But it's the use of the building, right? And we do have a very expensive school being built. We do know that that's going to be expensive, and we hear from the school committee, like, there are school properties and you could do something with them. And so I would want to be thoughtful about how we use that property, because we're not solving a problem, right? We're not necessarily solving the financing of the school problem. We're not necessarily solving affordable housing problem that we hear all about. So, it's hard to explain why we would pivot this way unless we have a very open conversation about it.
And we've looked at workforce housing, affordable housing. We looked at all that. We know we have 2 other schools that are more appropriate for that. This is in the middle of town and can be used by all the townspeople in a central location. And by the way, 2 years from now, if student population starts to increase, it could be turned back into a school, because we really haven't done any structurally to the facility. Another thing to think about. That's in the letter.
Go ahead.
Kind of along the same lines, I wanted to ask, in your rationale in your report, you mentioned housing, but then sort of quickly went to the hub idea. And I looked up the 2 centers, Newport, Innovation Newport, and Hope in Maine in Bristol. I did notice that both of those were school buildings, but they also seem to be much larger school buildings than Wakefield. Was there any discussion about sort of a minimum square footage that you need?
To build a hub?
To serve as a hub. Those 2 that you gave us as examples.
Yeah, no, those 2 buildings.
Seem to be much larger.
Those buildings are bigger, multi-story and whatever, and that's, but I don't think you necessarily need that for a hub. But again, those are different kinds of hubs from what we're talking about. So.
This school is about 34,000 square feet, all in. It's quite a big space.
Okay. The second aspect of the report that I wanted to follow up on, sort of related to the reference to housing in the report. Was there any discussion about multi-use zoning? It seems like you focused in, and Larry's explained it well, about just using the structure that's there and retaining ownership, and I get all that. But would it make any sense, or did anybody consider whether the structure could be altered to be multi-level and multi-use?
We have a little group that advises us on different things. The Economic Development Committee does. And that group consists of developers and architects and some others. And yes, we did think about, multi-use was one. We talked about this for a long time, and we covered a lot of these issues: selling it, affordable housing, mixed use. And I think we came to the conclusion that we wanted to use this building quickly, and we wanted to take advantage of its centrality, and to build on those two ideas. The proposal we came up with is the one that we feel best addresses that. It's not a space that easily lends itself, although some of us on the committee wanted very much to see it become housing, but that would require a very different kind of financial commitment on the part of the.
Can I just take a shot at that? So we had a lengthy and spirited discussion about that, and one of the problems is we really didn't know what the strategic priorities were in terms of how important housing would be, the potential for reuse of the facility. That might be a low need. It might be something in the future that's a higher need. Population changes are happening right now. So, but to answer your question, in that discussion, of the round numbers, 30,000 square feet, about 40% could be converted to residential. I'll speak for myself because there was an architect involved and didn't quite share these opinions, but I'm an engineer, so I've got that background, and I've done renovations like this. Long story short, I think you could get 12 units out of there, single-bedroom units, in the east side of the facility. That would amount to about 12,000 square feet, so it would still leave a pretty substantial portion of the building for the hub, the incubator, including the stage, the auditorium, the library. So we did look at that, but at the end of the day, the group's decision was, as we've discussed, it did not include mixed use for residential.
Right. And as I understand it from Larry's presentation, part of that is the immediacy, the immediate availability of the building as is, but you're not ruling out something else further down the road. Okay, thank you.
Maximum flexibility.
Go ahead.
I don't know if I'm sounding skeptical, and probably I am, but South Road has been empty. It was a testing site during COVID, and it's literally been empty for 3 years. And no one has come forward and said, can we rent this space? So like, I'm just wondering how much of a need there is when people say, yes, I would like that. Is it because it's a better location? Is it because it's in better shape than South Road School?
I think it's vicinity to the bike path, to Main Street, where you have all the other businesses. I think that gives maximum flexibility, but I didn't bring my crystal ball tonight, so I can't.
I know. I just feel like I hear people saying, South Road's been empty forever, and no one's come forward and said, let's do this. The other piece of information, I don't know, we got a note in an email that the utility costs at West Kingston could be $60,000 to $70,000 without any capital improvements annually. So I'm not a renter of things, so I have no idea what that would translate to into square footage. And
we asked for the operating costs
Yeah.
of the building, and they were not provided to us.
okay,
So I can't respond to that.
okay, Jim.
Well, I'm sorry they didn't get to you, because they got to me. I apologize. But the cost in oil alone is about $30,000. All the additional costs would be about $70,000. And the building would need, first of all, the school department still owns it right now. And that's one. And two, I've been to that facility, and it does need a substantial amount of cleaning, as you probably saw when you were in there. But also, there are other issues. It's an old school, and I think one of the boilers needs repair. You're gonna need infrastructure improvement. I don't know if the building leaks or whatever, but it's an old building, so those are just concerns that I would have as a town manager controlling what we put into that building. So it's about $70,000 a year for utilities for that building.
I think one thing to point out, though, I believe if it were still an elementary school, we probably would still have kids in there, and we are not funding a lot of renovations or improvements to elementary schools, so we would still be in that situation.
Well,
For a couple
the
years
school
now.
department would be, not us.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So,
But I'm
once
saying
we-
it would
Once
still
we
be-
own it, we own the bills too,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. No, I mean, I think from a standpoint of what we're tasked to do from economic development, looking at the building and looking at the immediate opportunity within the location, where it is, what the building represents, and the opportunity long-term for economic development, this is the idea. I think in order to do a hub, as Susan continues to reiterate, the capital H hub, it would take marketing, it would take investment in an idea, in a vision. So whether blue economy or green economy or an art hub, something along those lines, it needs to be branded if it becomes a proper hub. If it does do that, it then can attract URI students, young entrepreneurs who are looking at that specific type of business to grow here in South Kingstown. So I think there's that opportunity. At the same time, we also looked at it, although we were only supposed to be looking at Wakefield Elementary, looking at the standpoint that there is Wakefield Elementary and South, although we agree that from an economic standpoint, housing is a problem, that South is much better to solve the housing problem, and that Wakefield is an opportunity to create a center that the town can be proud of that can drive economic development quickly, so it doesn't stay empty like South Road.
I'm looking at the time and don't want to overstay our welcome.
You can't go yet.
Before you
Okay.
go,
We're here till midnight.
Good.
Right there.
That don't blame me then.
So, one of the things I think would be helpful is to have the options. This is clearly one option, it's your recommendation, but we should also vet just fee simple sell, what it would mean, like looking at other options so that as we move forward, we can make a good decision. I think the most important thing, I think, you said a lot of good things, Larry, but we could turn around right away and rent right away, which is interesting and important, but I also think we need to be in a long-term plan of what will become there, and that is the most, we need to work towards that instead of sort of meandering down a lazy river to get to just sort of South Road sort of hung about too long. So I don't want to.
You could also think about this, though, as sort of do-it-yourself development. You could say, we're going to do this. That doesn't, as Larry has said, it doesn't preclude doing something different in the future. What it does, that your idea doesn't, is it allows us to begin the experiment now. We get to find, we know we can fill these spaces with people who are interested in being there. And so we could see, while we're thinking about longer term things, we could see what evolves as a community, as a hub, as a place. I mean, there are people, I talk to people at URI who have graduating, students who are graduating, who want to stay in town, and they can't. They don't have the kind of sort of informal, flexible spaces they can rent for a little while they get their feet on the ground. And that's really what we're talking about. We're talking, let the community experiment here with the ways in which it can be used. And then, since we know if we take a long-term plan, it will take a long time to get there, we can have the information we gather in the short term, addressing some problems we know we have right now.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note, too, that even though a lot of the examples are nonprofit, the idea isn't necessarily that the building is not for profit. The opportunity, Susan, you talked to quite a few nonprofits that would be willing to pay for space, and there may be something that break even with the costs that you're speaking to, but that's immediate revenue opportunity on that space while still keeping the options open. And then also tapping into federal and state programs like the Blue Economy movements and other things along those lines to see what kind of funding exists for bigger initiatives that might be state or federally tied into.
right.
Jim, what's the time frame on the town getting the building?
So we are a little behind schedule. Have approached the school department. They have to go to RIDE, give up the school, repurpose it, whatever they want to call it. So we're with, I would say, a couple of months, but I can't tell you exactly where we could maybe get ownership of it. But once again, we'd have to start the process of cleaning it out, going over the infrastructure. You're several months, numerous months away from
Okay.
being operational.
And just going by the figures that you had said, which I think you're probably right, the dollar-wise that it costs per year just to keep it going,
One more question.
that's about $3 a square foot. So I don't know if, rent would cover that.
The math should be done, and it should cover its operating expenses and then some. We just can't give you a dollar amount. You just did what a small businessman would do on a new property. Exactly. Can you rent any place in town for $3 a square foot? So it's because the town owns it, will cover all the costs that we're paying right now, whether it's school department or the town, and then some. So you're going to get a return on that, and it shouldn't cost you money unless you plan, add some new windows or whatever, if that's what you want, as you need them. That kind of thing would change things. But we weren't given those numbers, so we couldn't do any analysis on that, Greg.
One thing I would, sorry.
Before we go, I'm going to say on this. So if the piloting idea that they're talking about were to happen, Jim, how do you see that being managed? In what town department would take over the coordination? I mean, because I'm in my head thinking Parks and Rec, the Guild does their Peaceville office building and all those. Where would it be housed in the town?
Well, I don't have that answer yet. I'd have to really analyze it, but one thing is for certain facilities would play a big role in that, because that property would be turned over to the town. They'd have to maintain it, give it a budget of what it would need and so forth, but I'm not sure where it would fall under the town government, but we'd figure out somewhere, for sure.
And I think if the town were to take over the property within the next couple of months, and let's say the property is still empty coming into next winter, you would still be paying for the oil and the heat to you shut everything down?
South Road School is virtually nothing. We shut it down. It's all winterized.
All right. So I want to just say some final thoughts here. I like what you guys have brought to the table here. I think this hub concept is interesting. This potential idea to use in the interim as we figure out what we want to do with the property in the long term. Obviously, this council has an interest in economic development, whether that be through use of the property to bring businesses in, to create jobs, create more activity in town, to create more of a trickle-down effect. But also there's some interest in just hearing more about the potential of proposed sale of the land contingent on a zoning change so we can sort of control what it would look like in the long term. Obviously, we don't have control of the property now. The school committee has to abandon the property, give it over to our control so we can move forward and make a decision as to its use. I think what would help us in deciding whether to do this in the interim before we move forward with the long-term plan is what businesses locally are interested. I think we should give a priority to existing businesses that are local to allow them to expand. What kind of activities would they be doing inside the building? And whatever interest we could get outside of town after we've given preference to the locals, whatever interest there is, we take. But if there is a way that we can increase the job force in town through reuse of the building as a hub, as you guys have explained tonight, I'm definitely very interested. But I think we need to know a little bit more who wants to use it, how it's going to be used. And you say it's ready to go? Well, if you got the interest, we'd like to see that. So.
Okay. Go ahead.
I would like to just include or add one further thing to that. One thing that sort of jumped out at me as an issue or potential issue for somebody that's trying to start a new project is a month-to-month lease. So that's not very appealing when you're when you're trying to get something started, you want to have security that you're not going to be like booted out the next month. So I'd like to maybe talk about that a little bit as we go forward.
That can be flexible depending on when you're leasing to them and how long any further discussion on long range, that would impact that. So they could be 6 months, they could be a year. But a year, that person that does that is personally liable for that lease for the year. So there's a downside to a longer term also.
Right. There's definitely ups and downs to that, but I think for a lot of business people, it would be important.
I want to inform the council that tonight the EDC voted unanimously to endorse the South County Hospital Initiative. That's on your agenda tonight. I don't want to take any time now because of what hour it is, and you've got to get on with the business, and you're not going to hold me responsible for that. But in closing, I'd like to thank the council for your time tonight. I've been on the EDC for many years, its chair for too many years, and advised many councils. It's time to step down from the EDC, effective immediately. I'm resigning for a lot of different reasons. I look forward to having my exit interview in the coming days, whenever you can schedule it. I won't take your time tonight. I'd like to thank the town for the opportunity to serve in this voluntary role these many years. It's been an honor to serve with the past and current members of the committee. You've got a great group of current members here, and the committee is in great hands going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you for your service.
It's rare that we get a resignation in person, so I do want to say thank you. I was about to thank you for all the hard work you did just to bring this concept forward, and it took a lot of hours, but you've been involved as long as I've ever been a resident, Larry, I think 20-something years. So I appreciate all your hard work.
I think it's north of 25. And
same for me.
I just thought it was important to do it in person and not in a letter. My term was up in March, but I had committed to come back to you guys with the Wakefield Elementary School, and I wanted to button that up for you before I step down.
Thank you.
My committee members mostly don't know.
They didn't know?
Just now, no.
Oh, wow.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, Larry. We'll miss you. Stay involved. Come back to meetings. And thank you to the EDC for the update. Appreciate your time. All right, good evening, everyone. We're now going to dive into our regular session tonight. Today is Tuesday, May 28th. It is about 7:45 p.m. And first order of business, as always, is Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next on the agenda is the land acknowledgement statement, which I will read. The town of South Kingstown pays homage to the indigenous people and land on which the town is now located. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder of our ongoing efforts to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Narragansett tribe whose land and water we benefit from today. All right, next we have the roll call.
Council President McEntee?
Here.
Council Vice President Marin?
Here.
Councilmember Bergner?
Here.
Councilmember Alley?
Here.
Councilmember Sweet?
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you. All right, next we have item 5, approval of minutes of previous meetings.
Motion to approve items 5A, B, and C.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I wasn't here, so I'm abstaining.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes 4-0, one abstention. It's going to bring us to item 6, the consent agenda.
Motion to approve item 6, A, B, and C.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That passes. It's going to bring us to item 7, licenses. A is a resolution granting victualling, holiday sales, and dance licenses to Hannah's Bistro LLC, doing business as Bistro by the Sea of Wakefield. Application by Alicia Bryson, member. Alicia, come on up.
Push the button and it turns the red light.
Okay, thank you.
All right, welcome. And if you want to tell us what this is all about?
Sure. So we currently own and operate Duck Press on Main Street in Wakefield. This is our third year that we've having a great start, and now we would like to expand. My husband and I operate and own Duck Press, and we would like to expand the operation over to the Bistro by the Sea, which is the small. It's a 150-seat restaurant, but there's a smaller bistro side that seats about 45, and then there's an overflow cabaret area that extends the additional seating if we'd like. And Theater by the Sea reached out to us and asked us if we'd be interested in taking over the venture for the season, and we said yes. So in March, we signed a lease, and we've been cleaning up and renovating and looking to open in the next couple weeks, if possible.
Excellent.
So what will be on the menu? Is it different than the Duck Press?
So it will be a continuation of what Mark and I do at Duck Press as far as the ingredients that we like to source, our style. If you've ever been to Duck Press, we take a great pride in our wine list and our drink cocktails. We tend to cater to a 25 and older crowd typically. We don't have a lot of college-age kids or younger adults in our restaurant often, but it is a family setting. So we're going to transfer that idea over to theater. We're going to scale down our menu a little bit. We have very kind of eclectic small plates at Duck Press, and we're going to sort of cater to the mass audience a little more at Theater by the Sea, and also probably take our price ranges down just a little bit as well over there. So our starters, we're still going to have a small plates of about 6 options. New England clam chowder, a corn bisque, shrimp cocktail, stuffy, New England classics, our play on them. This is a little different style than Duck Press. At Duck Press, you come and dine, and we want you there for 2.5 hours. We want you to have 3 courses and pair all your drinks. At theater, we have about 90 minutes to flip the room and get everyone into the theater as basically by 8 o'clock. So our menu is designed to execute a little faster, but still sticking to what represents us as our Duck Press brand, and also using more New England fare. We'll have some mains as well. That will be a Cobb salad. We'll have a steak frites. We'll have a fish and chips, roasted half chicken, linguine and clams, and a vegetarian pasta. And that pretty much is our whole menu right now. The first month, we definitely want to make sure we start off solid. This is our third restaurant that my husband and I are opening together, so we're experienced in this industry, and we kind of know what works. We've hired a GM over there as well that we're really excited about, and she'll be running daily operations with us, as we'll also be running Duck Press simultaneously. So we're starting off with a smaller, controlled menu to make sure we execute well at opening.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Open 7 days a week?
We're going to be so there's no shows on Mondays, so we'll only be open on days that there are shows. And so we'll be opening around 4:30 for the bar service, 5 o'clock for dinner, and we probably won't see any more after dinner around 7:45. We're really targeting the audience that is going to the shows, but obviously we're open to the public. We'll be looking to really brand ourselves in that area as we kind of venture to that side of South Kingstown to let the locals that are there know who we are that don't come to Duck Press necessarily. But for the beginning, we are targeting the hours around the shows. So we'll basically be opening before the show for dinner and closed on Mondays when there are no shows.
Are you going to operate the cabaret after the show as well?
So yes, there's 4 Thursdays where there's going to be a cabaret in July, and we will use that cabaret room. The theater supplies basically the performer for us, and we'll do small bites and cocktailing at some tables as well on the 4 Thursdays they have that. And we expect that to go no later than about midnight to 12:30. So that's probably the only occasion that I can really see that we would have service later in the evening, are those 4 specific Thursdays. We basically anticipate the restaurant essentially closing down once the theater is seated. That's what we foresee.
All right. I look forward to it. It's going to be great.
Yeah, we're very excited.
Do I hear a motion on this?
Motion to approve item 7A.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. We also got you here for the next item as well. Just going to read this into the record. 8A is a public hearing relative to an application for a license to keep and sell alcoholic beverages in South Kingstown in accordance with the general laws of 1956 as amended as follows. Class B victular liquor license, application for a Class B victular liquor license by Hannah's Bistro LLC, doing business as Bistro by the Sea of Wakefield, by Alicia Bryson, member, for the first floor of the restaurant, gazebo for intermissions, tents on tennis courts, and 32-foot by 50-foot patio in accordance with special use permits granted by the Zoning Board of Review on August 15, 2007 and March 17, 2010, and as further defined in a site plan on file in the town clerk's office. Said license is contingent upon the issuance of a certificate of good standing from the Rhode Island Division of Taxation, a certificate of insurance evidencing required liability coverage, compliance with all town ordinances and regulations, the payment of any municipal taxes and user fees in arrears to the town, and the correction of any fire code violations. All right, so I think we get the idea here. Going to continue to sell alcoholic beverages at the location,
Correct.
just as the former business was doing there.
Correct.
This is a public hearing, so we do have to open it up. Anyone who wishes to speak on it has the opportunity. So, anyone in the audience who want to speak on this item specifically, I invite you to come on up. All right, seeing none, do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close, second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the public hearing is now closed. We're going to move down now to new business, item 9A, a resolution affirming or amending the town's liquor license rules and regulations, section 1. The current number of licenses for each class shall be authorized as indicated below, unless changed by a majority vote of the town council. We are now considering increasing the Class B victular license from 29 to 30. Is that correct, Mike? It is. Okay. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. It's going to bring us back to item 8A. Do I hear a motion on 8A?
Motion to approve item 8A.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Alicia, you're all set. Thank you.
Good luck.
All right, that's going to bring us to item 9B. The tax assessor, can you come on up? Wendy, if you're here?
I think because of the nature of this, I told her she probably didn't have to
All
attend.
right,
This is
that's fine.
This is a very easy one. So this was the agreement that town council was briefed on by the solicitor about Harbor Village and 2 separate lots. And Mike, did you want to go over the Harbor Village tax abatement at all? Or it's 9B is in Boston. This is the one we, council already approved the abatement for the 2 lots.
We went through an explanation prior about why we're recommending this abatement from a legal perspective and from all of the material that we had before us. We highly recommend this. It resolves this matter.
All right, any questions on this? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve item 9B.
Second?
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passes. All right, it's going to bring us to item C. Terry Murphy, come on up.
Good evening. This is a request for a recommendation for authorization to purchase a new software data management system for the Recreation Department. The current system that the department uses is called RecPro. We've used it since 2013. We have outgrown its capacity in order to effectively manage online registrations, facility schedules, instructor management, data input for various programs, and we have been in search of a new software solution to be able to make our processes less duplicative, more efficient. Right now, we still utilize paper forms for our facility scheduling purposes, and there's a lot of redundancy that we'd like to eliminate. What we did was we did look at 3 separate software solutions, Civic Rec, Amelia, and DaySmart. And of the 3 that we demoed and evaluated, Civic Rec software is really the most appropriate for what we are looking to be able to do with our expanded scope for the Recreation Department. We have options within Civic Rec that allow us to incorporate our independent contractors. We have multiple programs that go on any given season, and we utilize a lot of independent contractors. We're able to pull them in as having logins to be able to have their information loaded directly into the system for then our staff to be able to approve rather than having emails back and forth, hard copy contracts, those types of things. It also has a document management system that allows us to upload documents, waivers, med forms, and those types of things that right now, again, we're managing on multiple levels with hard copies, PDFs being emailed, and it's not efficient. So what I'm recommending is the purchase of, or actually the authorization for a contract with Civic Rec to be able to utilize their software system. Civic Rec is also the company, it is a company owned by Civic Plus, which is the town website contractor for the town of South Kingstown as well. So we also leverage the fact that we're a customer with Civic Plus and have that customer service already set up with Civic Plus to be able to seamlessly move into Civic Rec. We're looking to purchase this at an initial startup cost of $32,461. That includes the annual fee, but that also includes the startup. The annual fee for this service will be $23,489. Annually, there will be an annual increase built into the contract, which is 3% fixed for the life of the contract. We had an option there to go with 0% increase for 2 years, but then we had a variable increase after the 2 years, and we intend to be able to utilize this software for at least 10 years. This is a big project to put in place, so we want to make sure we do it right and have a long-term stable budget for it. The cost for the initial purchase will be, the budget that will be used are funds from capital programs that we have completed and had a surplus for. We have balances for the Brusso Park tennis lights that were installed 3 years ago, I think now. So we have $14,000 balance there. We have a $12,500 balance for Stepping Stone school improvements, West Kingston Park fence replacement of $807, and recreation unassigned reserve fund of the capital. We're recommending utilizing $5,104 of that, which right now is a balance of about $14,000 in that account. And then going forward, we will budget this into the operating budget, split among the general fund, the guild, the rec center, PDOB, and Stepping Stone. So all of those operations will contribute towards the annual cost of this. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Terry? Go ahead.
I have one question. If we were to incorporate Wakefield Elementary School in the manner similar to what we discussed tonight as a hub or a hive or something like that, would this software be able to add that new property and manage it as well, or?
Theoretically speaking, it has a facility management module. That's one of the features of this, is that we're looking to better manage our scheduling of fields, scheduling of facilities. So if that were something that were to occur, we would build in
A
more,
module, or?
yeah, more, just the facility would be added with rooms and breakouts for rentals, reservations, but.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
So I think the software is really important to manage the multiple things. Is it, the Rec Pro, do we not have an annual fee? Like, because you're sort of explaining how you're going to put the funding together.
We do have an annual fee for Rec Pro. Rec Pro is, we manage that in-house. It's on our network. This is cloud-based.
Cloud.
Right. So the fee for Rec Pro is less. It's about $8,000 a year total.
Mhm.
But it just doesn't have the capacity.
I understand, yeah. So it's outlived its life, and so you're going to just switch to it?
We're trying to upgrade to meet our needs, and then also meet our needs 10 years from now, hopefully.
So when does the Rec Pro annual contract?
That's annual. We're in the year right now. We can set our contract with Civic Rec so that we're not duplicating.
Perfect.
We will need to probably run parallel systems for the time being. I would imagine that IT would want us to do that. So we would take that into account as well.
So there'll be a little bit of
Overlap.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the cloud also is better too for security, because
it is, and we're able to do more things on site outside of the 2 brick and mortar facilities that we have that allow us to be more flexible.
Exactly.
All right, Mike?
I noticed the contract included a provision for user-friendly interface. Is the company going to provide some kind of training for staff and the public?
They are providing training for staff. We can certainly ask them. The staff would be the ones that would provide the training for the public. Although it's very user-friendly on the public side. It's really the build-up of the back end that staff will be responsible for, with a trainer and a consultant to go through that process and build the back end with facilities and programs and fees and the like. So, but that's a good question. I would hope that new users will. The public's pretty adept at most online accounts now.
Some members of the public are not. I was thinking like a little video for first-time users.
Sure. They have those YouTube videos.
There are still a few dinosaurs
Yeah.
out here.
Understood.
Thank you.
The other?
Does that fee include exporting the data from the existing software into theirs, or is that done by hand?
It does include transporting the data from one to another, but we will be selective about what data is moved over because we want to make sure it's clean data. And we have, as with any software system, duplicate accounts are created as much as we try not to have that happen. So we'll be selective about, for instance, our facility data is pretty clean, it's back-end data, so that will be moved over. But when it comes to customer accounts, that's something that we will probably take the long route with and have people build their own customer accounts rather than transferring data.
All right. Thank you, Terry. Do I hear a motion on this item?
Motion to approve item 9C.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. We got one more from you, Terry.
Yes, this item is a recommendation for an award of bid to the sole bidder for turf management supplies and consulting. Our park superintendent and deputy director Rex Eberly highly recommends Tom Irwin Inc. We've had a partnership with this company for several years running, and they supply the materials for managing turf on all athletic fields within the town that our parks crew manages. Seed, fertilizer, green chemicals that allow us to manage and present playable, safe athletic fields for multiple leagues, the school department, youth leagues, adult leagues, and so on. So this is a recommendation to award this bid. Along with it, we get an online agronomic plan, which allows, and there's a calendar that goes with it, it allows the park staff to actually apply the seed and soil and chemicals at a pre-scheduled time so that it optimizes the results.
All right. Any questions for Terry on this one?
Motion to approve item 9D.
Second?
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Go ahead.
Just one quick point for the public. This is already, the funds for this contract are already included in your budget.
Yes, this is budgeted.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Before we go on to the others, oh, sorry. I thought we wouldn't vote on this.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, that passes. What do you got?
Can we just move up item J? Because I noticed there's a lot of people that have hospital badges, and they're sitting here, and while they may be fascinated by recreational management software, maybe they're not. And we could just maybe invert a little bit and let everybody that doesn't need to stay here till whenever come forward. Does anyone mind?
All right, we're going to move up item J.
You're welcome.
A resolution proposed by Council Vice President Mike Marin in support of legislation, House Bill 2024 H8072 and Senate Bill 2024 S2722 that would amend the Rhode Island Healthcare Reform Act of 2004, health insurance oversight to improve state reimbursement rates for South County Health and other hospitals and healthcare providers as follows.
This was the resolution that Larry Fish mentioned as part of the EDC. They have recommended that we approve the resolution in the form listed in the agenda. I had a brief conversation with legal counsel for the hospital, and they would appreciate our support. The two bills are pending in the legislature, and it's essentially something vital for the hospital, which is a major fixture in the community and a major employer here.
All right. You want to come on up? Representatives from the hospital?
Sorry, Ian Clark from South County Hospital, also a resident of Wakefield, been here since 2017. My address is 159 Peak Rock Road.
All right. Anything you wish to say on behalf of the hospital?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to first thank you guys for taking the time to hear this legislation the way it's currently stated. And although it's being presented as a bill specifically for South County Hospital, I really wanted to underscore the impact that it could have on healthcare delivery throughout the entirety of the state of Rhode Island if successfully passed. And I wanted to start out that discussion by talking a little bit about what Rhode Island has right now in the current state. So a lot of this information, I think, was provided in supplement to the Economic Development Committee's recommendation. So as you may be aware, Rhode Island has the lowest average staffed hours per inpatient discharge throughout the entirety of the nation. So what does that mean? It means we have fewer staff members taking care of patients who are sick and hospitalized. We have the highest clinical vacancy rates for healthcare workers and healthcare jobs throughout the entirety of the nation. We lost the second highest amount of nurses during the pandemic nationwide, adjusted per capita. We placed 47th out of 50th in the nation for retaining graduates after their medical school education in the state of Rhode Island. We have 1/3 of physicians who are currently at retirement age. We have clinical infrastructure that is older than average. And of course, as noted in the letter, we have a very long and troubled history of hospital closures, bankruptcies, changes in control, and out-of-state for-profit organizations taking over. We also know that in Rhode Island we have substantially similar operating costs on a per-day basis compared to the rest of New England. So really what this legislation is designed to do is bring us into parity with the remainder of the New England states, particularly Massachusetts as well as Connecticut. So although this particular piece of legislation is vital not only to South County, it is vital to, I would say, the delivery system in its entirety, really designed to promote access to healthcare and equity in healthcare services. So with that, I can certainly take any questions.
Any questions? I'll just say that whenever we can be in a position to help you, I know here this is sort of indirectly to help get behind legislation at the State House, showing our support, but you're obviously a big economic driver in town, but not only that, you provide a lot of healthcare services to everyone in town. And whatever we can do to help you guys keep going as an independent healthcare institution, we'll be here to help you to the full extent we can. So just know that we're here. We want to partner with you in any way that we can going forward. So I'm happy to get behind this bill as an example of that. But as we move forward, we should definitely be in-line partners to help you better achieve whatever it is the hospital desires to go.
Thank you.
Yes, you're a really valuable asset to our community, and we're happy to support you in achieving that economic parity, because it's not right. Because we need care and we appreciate your services. So happy to support this.
Thank you.
So I have I will currently help you. I believe this is the right resolution to go forward, and I just want to, I rarely talk about my personal family, but my son was just accepted to medical school at UVM, so as every mother's dream that you would want your child to come back and serve in the community that raised him, so maybe in 8 or so years we could have a wonderful doctor coming back on staff, maybe sooner, but we do pay attention because it's really challenging to find a primary care. If you pay attention at all on social media, people constantly are frustrated about getting one, and we're all excited when we actually have one. So we need to move this forward, and if there's more that we need to do as a council to help you, that we always want that to happen as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And congratulations.
I know. Very excited.
Yes.
All right. Do I hear a motion on this one?
Motion to approve item 9J.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, and Mike Marin for shepherding this forward. I wondered where that went, the State House.
Go ahead, come on up.
Just a point of information, Mike Agus, the Economic Development Committee. Ian Clark, who was speaking, is the VP of Strategy and Performance Excellence, I believe, at South County. And earlier in the year, we approached both URI and South County Hospital and asked their leadership to appoint somebody to be an ex officio member of the Economic Development Committee. And Ian has filled that job. He happens to be a member of a citizen of South County, of South Kingstown as well. So he's just made his application to join the Economic Development Committee. And we'll try to do the same thing at URI, but that one's had a little bump in the road, but we'll get that one done too. So I just wanted to, more good things will be coming because...
So here's my follow-up.
Yeah.
Now that you have a vacancy,
Yeah.
you have a new application coming in, would you rather have him be a member or an ex officio member?
Oh, we'd rather have him be a member.
All right.
Yeah.
Enough said. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, you bet. Thank you, guys.
All right, it's going to move us to item E and F. Chief Moynihan, come on up.
Good evening. I have two requests for a resolution for a bid. The first is for our uniforms and laundry service. That went out to bid. We had two vendors that replied, Kingston Cleaners as well as Eastwind, which is our current vendor. Eastwind had the lowest response. They've been our vendor for the last 17 years. We're happy with their service, so I request that we'd continue with them and a resolution be authorized to award them the bid. You want to go to the next?
Yeah, we can do the next one. We'll take this one together.
So the second is, in April, you authorized the purchase of two patrol vehicles. The next day, we lost a vehicle that was totaled. And so this is a request to go back as part of the cooperating purchase agreement out of the Greater Boston Police Council is to purchase a replacement vehicle. Part of the cost is coming from insurance money from the trust for the vehicle that was totaled. It didn't cover the total cost of the vehicle, and we are utilizing some surplus funding from the end of the year budget. This is only the cost for the vehicle. The upfit of the vehicle is still going to be required, and I'd come in front of you at that point. We're looking now to utilize a lot of the equipment from the car that was totaled to be placed into the new car, so we're still trying to determine what can be used in the new car to keep the cost down.
All right. Any questions for the chief?
I would just be interested in the cleaners. You mentioned Kingston Cleaners.
Yes.
So that's a local business, right? And so I'm just wondering, I know you're happy with Eastwinds and they've been providing the service for a long time, but is there ever an opportunity for I don't know if we do this, but it would be nice to give the business to a local business, but I don't know how much more their bid came in or...
So Eastwinds has a store in East Greenwich, but they also have it up on Old Tower Hill Road as well. So they
okay,
they do
good.
employ local residents in our community.
Okay. All right,
And,
awesome.
Again, there were 26 items on the bid. They were the lowest on all 26.
Okay. I'm happy that they're in our town too.
Yes.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Sorry, this is actually a question for Jim on the insurance in connection with the vehicle that was totaled. Have we looked into whether or not replacement cost is an option under the insurance policy?
I do not believe it is, only because emergency vehicles are much different. Unfortunately, it's a fact of life where these vehicles get rear-ended, accidents occur. Unfortunately, this one we got about $28,000 reimbursement. It was about $45,000, is that correct, Chief? Just for the vehicle itself. Whatever it is, we had the money.
About $26,000.
But replacement cost is not that I've seen personally as an option for emergency vehicles.
I was just thinking, depending on the usage, the number of claims that we have, maybe Brian could check to see if it'd be more cost effective if the option were available. If not, There's nothing you can
Yeah,
do.
we'll certainly check on that.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve items 9E and F.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, those pass. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, Rich Bourbonnais, come on up.
Good evening. I've got two items for you. Item G, what I'd like to do is purchase a stump grinder. You know, presently, when we have, we put out a tree contract every year to remove trees. We usually include the stump in that, but when we have emergency situations, we have to go back normally and pay to have that stump grinded up, or we have to rent a grinder ourselves. I'd like to purchase what is a Bobcat. It would affix to our existing equipment, and we've got a cost of $10,966. The company that we're purchasing it from is on the state MPA, and that's how we selected them. So.
All right, any questions for Rich on this one? All right, let's move to the next one.
You know, and I've been in here a number of times talking about our salting of roads and how we salt roads. What I'd like to do at this point, and what Highway has requested, is to affix a number of the vehicles with a pre-wet salt system where it hangs on the back of the truck. It's wired into the truck, so that what we do is we wet the salt as it's going out with a brine system. The brine is what we're creating over there at the Highway Garage, thanks to some other approvals at this council. So it activates the salt, and it helps it adhere to the road much better. You know, both of these items, we're hoping to use some of our salt dollars that have been left in, you know, because we had a very mild season this year. And with the salt, the pre-wet system, we'd like to affix this system to 9 trucks. You know, and this could take place over the next, you know, 8 or 10 months, because you can't do them all at once. We have to phase them in.
All right, any questions for Rich?
Is the money that you're using for this budgeted, or is it, how are you funding these two purchases?
It was not. It was, well, it was the salt, the money that was remaining from the salt account, which is, I believe it's in excess of $80,000 is there, because we didn't plow. And we're just using a portion of that to kind of finish out our salting process, which is the bulk of this, the $10,000 for the stump grinder.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve items G and H.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Luke Murray, come on up.
Good evening. So I'm here to present a request award to KCM Group for Owners Project Management Services. This is the result of some great stuff going on here in SK, to include a community learning center that we're planning on building over at the Peacedale Library. That library expansion or renovation will be paid for through a grant from the Pandemic Recovery Office of $2.52 million. In addition, this OPM would oversee the EMS station in Perryville to keep that project rolling along. I talk a lot about bandwidth of staff, and this is something that we feel we need at this time to keep that project moving and make sure we have appropriate delivery of that project, which we also have a $1 million grant on as well, in addition to being funded by the ARPA funding that this body has approved. In addition, the Neighborhood Guild improvements, which have already been slotted in the budget under capital funds. So there's HVAC repairs and a number of improvements there, windows, et cetera, that need to be done. $1 million isn't going to cover it all. What we need to determine with the OPM is the best delivery model and the most efficient model to get those improvements done in the short term. So we had a selection process through RFQ. We had a 3-member selection team, Laurel Clark, myself, Jamie Rabbit reviewed the proposals. I'm sorry, I'm leaving one out. Mark Russo from the Facilities Department reviewed the proposals, rated them on an RFQ scale, and we also had pricing component as part of the RFQ that was weighted as part of scoring. Keo Construction Management was the preferred. They're local, or actually the president is local here. We feel that they will provide appropriate service delivery. The project manager assigned to this project was previously assigned to the Narragansett Library project, which was recently finished. We feel confident that they'll do a great job for SK. So we're requesting an up to amount of $250,000. Just as a reminder, again, this will be reimbursed through grant funding. We'll have to front those monies, and I'll be working with Brian to do that. We do have a grant account. In addition, we have some fronted grant funds from multiple different tranches that we can use up front. And with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Any questions for Luke?
When I was looking at the agenda, I was trying to recall, did we actually talk about going out to get an OPM as a council? Did we know this ahead of time, or?
Yeah, we've actually, I think in some of my previous updates on the Community Learning Center, I've spoken about it. Actually, I know specifically there was a question, would that be funded through the grant? And my answer was yes.
Okay.
So we have spoken about it.
I feel like it's a little blurry. That's why I had to ask.
Sure.
Because the project, you're basically at the end of the bid, you've selected a bid, and I'm like, do I remember that we even had this conversation that we're going to go this way?
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Luke? Go ahead.
Does the town have a clerk of the works?
We do not specifically. Rich can speak a little bit more to paving projects, those sorts of things, which we do have oversight on from the town engineer, but we don't have an official project manager or clerk of the works full-time just for that specific role.
And you're saying grants will pay for 100% of this?
Yes.
All right.
Well, let me caveat that. I'm going to give you one caveat. For two of the projects, yes. For the Guild improvement, which is the smaller of the projects, no, because that is a capital funded project. However, those improvements are being done out of the Guild fund.
There's one thing I'd like to add. These grants come with a lot of restrictions to them. The Community Learning Center, it's all or nothing. If you don't complete the project in a timely manner and exactly 100% the way it was intended, you don't get any of the money. So, and plus the bandwidth of the staff. These are big projects, some that we, they're coming all together at once. So Luke and I have talked about it. We've talked about it with the directors as well, that this will be money well spent. Of course, I'd rather not spend anything, but we really need to do this. We put a lot of thought into it, and to make sure that these grants, we can get the maximum amounts from, especially the all or nothing one. We really need project managers.
On the all or nothing one, if by some chance it doesn't get the final approval from the grant, I guess, or people giving the grant, we're on the hook for it, correct?
Well, we would be if we weren't doing our job. I'm not going into this cautiously. We're going to do it, and we're going to do it right. There's checks and balances involved. The state has overwatch on it. They're looking to make sure every T is crossed and I is dotted. I have no doubt in my mind that we will get it done, and it will be done correctly.
So we probably would not have to pay the OPM if things didn't go the way everybody's anticipating?
Failure is not an option with this. We're going to, believe me, there's going to be a lot of checks and balances. We will get it done.
I think that this is money well spent, and I actually was really happy now that I know what an owner's project manager is. I think that hiring one for these projects is absolutely a no-brainer, because to fail to do so would be penny wise and pound foolish. We have way too much on the line to not have somebody watching out for what really amounts to a pretty minimal amount of money in comparison to all of the money that this person will be managing. So I am fully behind your decision to hire this company, and the fact that they were responsible for the Narragansett Library, which is a beautiful project, and I think everything, I mean, I can't speak for that, but it looks great when you go into it. So I think it's a great idea. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Luke. Tim Murphy, Chair of the Library Board of Trustees, is here. If you want to come up and talk on this, if you have interest, as to your take, yes, as to your take on the certain OPM selected here and the work they did at Narragansett, and how you think that could sort of is a good indication of how the Community Learning Center will come along here in SK. Go ahead.
Well, I've been to the Narragansett Library. It's a terrific building. So they did a great job putting it together, and I'm assuming that the project manager had a big role in that. We're really looking forward to moving ahead on the Community Learning Center. It is a complicated project because it's an old building, and that presents some challenges. But I think we have a really good plan in place, and Laurel Clark has done a terrific job of, first of all, recognizing that there was money available for a project, then conceiving and putting it together with the support of the town manager and the town council. And I think that once it's done, it'll be a great thing for the community. But having someone that can, see the problems that maybe some of us didn't foresee and fix them, I think that will be well worth it.
All right, excellent. All right, this is definitely an easy one for me. I think it's a must-do for us to make sure we move forward with these projects efficiently and in a good manner, make sure we get the best out of what we're doing here.
Motion
Go
to
ahead.
approve item 9I.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. It's going to bring us to item K. Chris Spiegel, come on up.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see everyone again after a couple-week break. Hope everyone had a great Memorial Day. Luke Murray, Deputy Town Manager, forwarded you all a memorandum today, which I think does a great job of outlining the process, what a construction manager is responsible for, the evaluation and selection process, as well as where the point scoring came in. I'm happy to answer any questions. I can go deeper into the construction manager selection process. I can go into a little bit deeper on what a construction manager does versus what a general contractor does. Really here to answer any questions. Having said that, Left Field obviously has reviewed the final proposals and the fee proposal from Gilbane Building Company. We find it to be fair and reasonable and within market conditions currently for work in Rhode Island and Massachusetts. So again, happy to answer any questions you guys have at all about Gilbane Building Company, who has a representative here as well, or the construction manager selection process.
All right, Chris, let's start with some background as to the selection process that went into it. Then we'll go into the distinctions between a construction manager versus a general contractor. Then let's also talk about how the compensation of the construction manager is structured.
Okay.
Go for it.
So, pursuant to Rhode Island general law, we proceeded with a qualification-based selection process. Working with Julie Mason in procurement and Luke Murray, Left Field developed a construction manager at-risk request for qualifications proposal, which was advertised publicly as well as on BidNet. We had 5 firms submit qualifications proposals. Downs Construction Company, Shawmut Design and Construction, Gilbane Building Company, Dimeo, and ONG Industries. A construction manager selection team was created. It was made up of 1 member of the town council, Councilman Sweet. It was made up of 2 members of the school building committee, and it was made up of 4 members from the public. In order to get those 4 members from the public, we advertised on the town's website as well as the project website an application to apply. I believe we had 12 people apply to be on that team. Everyone was incredibly qualified. The 4 people that were selected were just chosen because they appeared the most qualified at that time. So Without getting into their names, we had one who was a capital project manager at a university. We had someone who owns a historic preservation business here in town. We had another person who's a member of a construction manager team who does not do work down here in Rhode Island, but an incredibly understanding person. And we had, as the fourth member, another person with significant construction management experience. During the construction manager team selection process, the qualifications proposals were reviewed by all 5 members of the team. They were reviewed individually. So we did not, their scores were completed by them individually and sent to me. There was no opportunity for any of the members to see each other's scores prior to them sending to me. We did have availability for meetings if anybody wanted to ask any questions about the qualifications themselves. However, with that being said, we wanted to make sure that everyone did their scoring individually. We asked the construction manager selection team to score on the following qualifications: the staff qualifications, their work plan, and their approach methodology to the project. There were a total of 50 points available. Additional areas that we scored as well were their completion of required documents, including a familiar relationship affidavit and a certification of non-collusion. We also took a look at their legal proceedings, what legal proceedings had been against them or that they've been involved with in the last 5 years. We also called, we didn't call, we provided surveys to references. We asked that they each submit 4 references. And we also took a look at contract comments. So as part of the RFQ process, we put a proposed contract in the RFQ. This way, the construction managers understand all of our contractual requirements so that it's not a negotiation point later on in the project. We wanted them to be very clear with what we were expecting for contracts so that it wasn't a situation where they have an issue with the contract. So those were the main points. After the construction, we also evaluated them on their MBE, WBE participation. As this committee is aware, Rhode Island has a minimum of 15% on all projects in terms of MBE, WBE participation. So we took a look at their proposal and how much they had planned to allocate to MBE, WBE firms. After all of these qualifications were tallied by myself, 3 firms were recommended to proceed to an interview phase. Those 3 firms were Shawmut Design and Construction, Dimeo, and Gilbane Building Company. Would you like me to move into the interviews? Are there any questions about that phase of the process?
Maybe you could go into sort of the resulting grading given by the selection committee that led to Gilbane as the choice of the 3 there.
So, after the interviews, after the interview period took place, we looked at the scores in terms of the interviews. And in terms of the interviews, they were graded on overall impressions, team chemistry, response to sent questions. We sent 5 questions ahead of time, as well as a response to ad hoc questions from the committee. In all 4 of those categories, Gilbane was the leading firm. In fact, they received a perfect score of 10 on overall impressions. They led in overall impressions. They led the group in team chemistry. They led response to sent questions. And they also led in response to ad hoc questions. As a result of their qualification scores, their fee score, as well as their interview scores, Gilbane Building Company was the apparent winner at 145.86 points. That was followed by Shawmut Design and Construction at 137.47 points, and then finally Dimeo at 124.32 points.
All right, thank you, Chris. Can you go into sort of the role of the construction manager and how that is distinguished from a general contractor?
So I'll explain what a general contractor is first. So many of us have done home renovation projects or we're aware of what a general contractor does. So a general contractor is someone you pay to supervise your work and coordinate work on a project. So they will go out and they will get pricing from a mechanic, a mechanical engineer or an electrician or a plumber, and they will ask for a price. They will then mark up that price between 2 and 10%, and then they will charge you for all of the work. So basically you're paying a markup for services offered by other companies for their supervision of the project and their coordination of the project. With a general contractor, that pricing isn't transparent to you as the owner. We may not know what their individual markups would be. Also, to be a little cynical about it, it sometimes is in a general contractor's best interest to proceed with a subcontractor who is more expensive because their markup on that subcontractor could be more. That's one way of running a project. A construction manager, which is very common in public projects, in fact, it's actually state law in Massachusetts for school projects to go construction manager, is a much more transparent process. So a construction manager makes their fee by just that. They charge a fee. They do not mark up any of the trade's work. In fact, when we get trade pricing, so if we get 5 quotes from electricians, I will actually be bringing all 5 of those quotes to a committee who will then say, we want ABC Electrical. And you'll see all of their quotes all together. So again, they do not make up their money by marking up subcontractors. They make up their money by charging a flat fee for the project. A construction manager is also responsible for the general conditions of the project. There is a long list of general conditions, but it's staffing, it's supervision, it's safety, it's coordination, it's layout, it's providing record drawings. There's, I'd say, about 30 or 40 individual line items for general conditions. And of course, the third element after general conditions and their fee is pre-construction. One of the advantages to a construction manager at risk process is you bring in the construction manager early in design. As this group knows, we are still very early in schematic design, stage 3 schematic design of the building. What that allows us to do is take advantage of the construction manager's expertise and adjust the plans in order to realize any savings for the town. So let's say that the architect has designed one specific route for the electrical. Well, the construction manager could say, wait a second, this is an easier and cheaper way to do that. With a general contractor, they have no motivation to do that. They bid on a set of drawings. That's what their bid is. A construction manager, again, doesn't make any less or more money if the project comes in under budget or over budget. So that's a key difference between a construction manager and a general contractor. All of the projects that are moving forward in Rhode Island have some sort of construction manager attached to them, with the exception of Central Falls High School. That is the only project that was hard bid or is being used by general contractor.
All right, Chris, now let's dive into the compensation here.
Of course. So again, as I mentioned, we asked for 3 specific elements of the pricing: a pre-construction fee, a fee for the work, and for their general conditions. Let me just bring up my fee proposal right here. So what is included in the pre-construction number? As I mentioned, it is using their expertise, it's their cost estimation, it's their mechanical supervisor, it's coordination of elements within the building. In general, the pricing for pre-construction ranged from a low bid of $17,500 a month to a high bid of $30,694. In this particular item, Gilbane provided a cost of $17,500 per month for a pre-construction phase fee of $175,000. In terms of the construction phase of the project, we have 2 line items. We have their fee, which is just that, it's their fee for performing the work, and their general conditions. For Gilbane Building Company, their fee was $2,047,000. And for their general conditions, it was $7,376,000, for a total, again, of $9,598,733. In total, Gilbane was right in the middle, but the spread was incredibly close, which is great, because Studio Jade has had a lot of time to do these projects. The spread between the low bidder and the high bidder was less than $300,000. So that is an incredibly tight spread. I have seen them be $4 million within the last year, a spread between low bidder and high bidder. It means that the scope of work was very clearly defined. We had a very clearly defined schedule. The construction manager did not have to make a lot of assumptions when carrying their price. Fee is pretty self-explanatory, but when we get into what is included in general conditions, you would have Builder's risk insurance. You would have their surety bonds. You would have their permit fees, both for ADA and for building permit if the town elects not to waive the building permit fee. It is all of their staffing, so their project executives, senior project managers, accountants, safety specialists, purchasing agents, tons of stuff. It is your site security. It is your trailers where people work out of. It is your temporary utilities fees. Rental costs of equipment on site. There's also labor involved in this because every project generally has 1 or 2 general laborers who work on the project, make sure the project is clean, open up gates for buses, that sort of thing. So again, it's a great deal of things are included in the general conditions, and that is performed directly by Gilbane Building Company.
All right, Chris, that gives a little good insight on total compensation. Now, how often is the construction manager paid? Monthly, quarterly? And how does the process work? Does it issue invoices and then it's paid based on the invoices?
So they issue what we call pay requisitions. Pay requisitions, depending on where we are in the project, they will look a little bit different from pre-construction phase, which is a flat fee of $17,500 a month, to as we get into construction. So we will buy out trades. And that's when I come to you guys and say there are 5 bids for the electrician. And as we load those trades on and they start to work, you will start to see the bills go higher from $17,500 a month to the cost of the work. And as part of our services, Left Field will provide cash flow projections to you and Brian so that you guys have an idea of how much we expect the construction manager to bill every month, how much the architect will cost every month, etc.
So now that we have an idea what the total cost for the construction manager is, at what point will we know the total project cost for the building?
That's a great question. So with a construction manager, you have a guaranteed maximum price. And I've spoken to this group about before, that's another key difference, is that you have a guaranteed maximum price, meaning that we sign a contract with Gilbane Building Company at 100% CDs. We are expecting 100% CDs to be sometime in the spring, early summer of next year is when we will sign the guaranteed maximum price. After we sign that guaranteed maximum price, the risk is on the contractor or the construction manager to bring the project in on that price. That is their responsibility once we sign that GMP. I want to be very clear about that. Construction manager at risk allows you to transfer risk to the construction manager.
So when will the price be determined? When will there be a final determination as to the total project cost? At the time that at-risk contract is signed and executed, so about a year from now?
About a year from now. We will obviously have much more information with cost estimates at 3 regular intervals per the RIDE process. We have to get cost estimates at schematic design development, and 60% CDs. However, the GMP will be signed at 100% CDs. So you'll know in the fall what our first round of cost estimating is. You'll know in spring what our second round is, and in the summer you'll know what the full GMP has been signed for.
All right. Any other questions up there?
I had that written down, what you said, the construction manager at risk is a guaranteed maximum price from like multiple meetings ago. Mm-hmm. So my question is, maybe it's too far down the rabbit hole, but say that the guaranteed maximum price of the high school is $133 million. We sign off a year from now, whatever, that's locked in. 18 months from that, they go, oh, we didn't anticipate, I don't know, the cost of steel goes up even more, or the wood, whatever. Some random expense happens. Is that value engineered back to 135, or do they have to deliver based on what the plans say?
They have to deliver based on what the plans say. So if they miss something, let's say, oh, we didn't calculate this price of steel, but it's in the drawings. To use an expression, kick rocks. It's sorry, you signed a GMP.
Like if we said we get four stalls in every bathroom, and they go, oh, these 3 bathrooms, you can only get 3 stalls.
Yeah, so it's on them. I'm sorry. As long as it's on the drawings and it's been
Okay.
You know,
So,
it's
so there's no value engineering backwards to
no
meet, to
value
make their
engineering.
price?
Now, there is an example of, let's say we have change orders. Let's say the project comes in at 115 million, and the town council's like, you know what, I'd really like to build a field house or something at the athletic field. Then we would change order, because that's not as part of our drawings. That's not part of our scope of work. But in general, if it's in the scope of work, if it's in the drawings, the construction manager owns that. It is their risk to bring it on budget.
So will they see like the level of finishes and the tile and the da-da-da, whatever the...
So before we sign a GMP, I can guarantee you we will know where every single tree on the property is going to go. You will know the color of every wall. You will know the layout of floor tiles and if they're in a pattern or not. Every single thing will be on those drawings.
Okay. Value engineering is a very painful thing, so I didn't want to be like...
So it is, absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why when we had those discussions back in October about where the budget should be, it was to protect us against this, because I am going through very painful value management engineering processes in other districts.
Okay. That's why I wanted to stop right there and just clarify for the community. Thank you.
So, Chris, to the extent that there are cost increases, the risk of loss is on the construction manager.
It is, but there are contingencies built in to the GMP to protect against that. Yes.
And to the extent those losses are too much for the construction manager to absorb such that it's insolvent, the surety steps up to fill the void and allows this project to continue.
Yes, Gilbane is I think this year they are the 11th biggest construction management firm in the United States of America. So, yes, we could hit their bond, as is the industry term, we could hit their bond if we needed to.
So we got all angles covered with the way this compensation is structured.
This is the safest route for the town. I think it provides the most value, and it allows us to get in the ground a lot quicker, which time is money.
All right.
Would it be accurate to say that being sort of the last, or one of the last ones in this process to get our high school, our bond approved and everything, I feel very fortunate that we were able to rectify and correct some of these problems that we see with other projects which involve, like you said, a very painful value engineering.
Yeah, Patty, that's a great observation. So because we're not going to have to spend months and months and months value managing this building, I am 99.9% positive you will get in the ground faster than a lot of other projects, because we don't have to consistently have a meeting with you and the school committee to say, we want to cut this, we want to cut this. And it's just a very long process. I'm not going to say the exact project, but I've already spent 3 months value managing a project that was awarded a construction manager 4 months ago. So by having a budget that works, it just gives you a lot more flexibility.
I know the process was somewhat painful for all of us, and I really want to express how thankful we are how thankful I am that we sort of hopefully preemptively address some of these situations that we've seen other towns go through, as some of the first ones and the problems with the pandemic. So I think it took us a little longer, but I think we're on very solid footing.
One way you're also benefiting is these construction managers generally all bid the same jobs. They have gotten to see each other's pricing a lot. So they've got to see their pricing in East Providence, North Providence, Middletown, Pawtucket, all these other places. So they sharpen their pencils, right? Every single time they see somebody's number, they say, how can we beat their number? How can we beat their number? So I think you're getting a great value.
All right.
Can you give some realistic examples of force majeure?
Realistic examples of force majeure. Sure, if a hurricane comes and hits the project while it's under construction, that would be an example of a force majeure.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Just a couple of points. I attended the May 9th meeting of the school building committee and got a chance to listen to the members talking about the evaluations. And I looked over the rubric that you used at the 156-point scale, which was a little bit difficult for somebody who's not a math major. But I did translate it. And one of the things that was nice about the process was, in the end, Gilbane was the clear favorite, according to the rankings that all the members used. So I think that's helpful, and the public ought to know Gilbane was the clear favorite in that ranking. And the second thing is, I just want to repeat a question I asked you at the May 9th meeting, but for the benefit of the public. What does the town have to do in order to be eligible for the enhanced bonuses from RIDE by June 30?
Sign a contract with either the construction manager or the architect.
Which is under consideration at this time, right now?
Right now, for the fee, which is the easy part, and then the architect is, both of the contracts are in review with legal right now, or already with your legal counsel right now for review.
So we're already all set.
Just got this notice to proceed will serve as that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we do have a representative from Gilbane here.
We do. He's also a resident.
All right, come on up.
Come on up, bud. So on a personal note, I do this for a living, and I will say that Gilbane's qualifications proposal is the best construction management proposal I've ever read. I don't know if Greg wants to comment. Greg read it too.
I think I ranked at the highest of the group.
Hello, everybody. Mark Moore. I'm a resident of South Kingstown, living in Matunic. I wasn't really prepared to speak tonight, but thank you for having me up here. I want to thank Left Field for the work that they've done, the building committee for the work that they've done. I've attended just about every building committee, school committee, and majority of the town council meetings throughout this whole process. So I've heard every concern. I've heard everybody's wishes, what keeps them up at night. So when we put our proposal together, we did so utilizing 6 town residents that live here, right here in South Kingstown, that will be dedicated to this project, including myself. I'll be the senior project manager. I'll be there every day. We'll have 2 other people there every day. You've got one resident who is a graduate of South Kingstown High School themselves. So we put together a local flavor. And what does that mean to everybody? Well, we're residents, we're homeowners, we pay the taxes. So the concerns about cost, the concerns about our taxes going up, we're feeling them as well. So, I want that to be known that, we're definitely on board and looking out for cost. We're in your community, we're baseball coaches, we're hockey coaches. I'm a Mason down the street. I'm a Shriner marching in your parades. We have a tie to the community. It's in our best interest to make sure that this goes forward on budget and on time. And I can give you my word that that will happen.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just passed around their staffing matrix so you can see everybody who's from what part of town.
All right. Any other questions?
So did the data, at the time of the school building committee meetings, has it shifted to not 4 o'clock any longer? Is it now?
Not yet for the summer. It'll probably change a little bit. I believe it's not up to me. It's still being discussed at school building committee meetings, but our meeting on Thursday is at 4 o'clock.
Okay, so I just would like it to make people have work commitments. They work out of the town, and people might want to be able to attend as some of these decisions start to get made, or at least pay attention. I just don't want them to be, they already got moved back during many people's workday. Is it going to be at 7 o'clock in the morning now?
I really hope not.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if I can get down here for 7 a.m.
Okay. I'm just concerned that we're going to create we're not going to create enough opportunities for people to participate. So who is trying to change that time, and who could I talk to make sure that people who want to attend?
The school building committee is on Thursday. I believe we're talking about it on Thursday, right?
So it was discussed about moving it to 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, mainly because as we move into more of the business aspects of the building committee, meaning we're talking about the nuts and bolts, less about the sort of the bigger planning pieces. It accommodated some of the committee members' schedules. That said, I hear you, and I will bring it back to the committee. And we can certainly communicate that with the chair, Kate, to discuss as well. We'll keep the one thing good about the committee meetings. We are recording all of the meetings still. They're going to continue to be here. They will be recorded, so anybody who can't make it for whatever reason will still be able to see them. But it will be a point of discussion this Thursday, and it is at 4 o'clock.
All right.
Aside from that, we also have, we're also planning our public engagement, town halls, meetings to discuss construction, things like that. So we'll be providing a schedule in the next few weeks about when those meetings we'd like them to be as well.
All right, thank you, Chris.
So Chris handed me this. I'm going to hand it down, but just say it on the microphone. This on the right-hand side is the local talented construction team. Tanya, Paul, Ryan, those.
So one of the things Left Field asks in our qualification proposals is we ask for commuting distance, because if there's a problem on a Saturday at 8 o'clock in the morning, we want to know how long it's going to take people to get there. So obviously they scored pretty high in commuting distance.
All right. Do I hear a motion on this item?
Motion to approve item 9K.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you, Chris. It's going to move us to item L. Jamie Rabbit, come on up.
Thank you and good evening. With regards to agenda item L, you have a recommended award of contract to Able City East. This is a result of some changes at Dover and Cole, who was originally assigned a contract by the council, signed by the town manager for the evaluation of Old Tower Hill Road as a new neighborhood and revisions to the zoning code. Dover and Cole is undergoing some internal changes with regards to their two founding partners as well as their employees. Within that was the Vice President, Jason King. Jason and King has left Dover and Cole and started a new firm. There's two aspects to it. It's King Design Collaborative, which has morphed into Able City East, which is a division of Able City based out of Texas. So the Able City, we'll say, firm will now have 4 locations, 3 in Texas and 1 in Miami, which is next door to the existing Dover and Cole. All of the team players that you have seen in town will remain involved in the project. So Jason King, his wife Pam Stacy King, Natalie, Cassie, Sean from Didarius, as well as Jeff Speck from Speck Design, who's looking at streetscape, will still be involved in the process. So I don't know. So from our perspective, legal has reviewed the initial contract with Dover and Cole. There is a reassignment paragraph in there, and in essence you would be reassigning the contract from Dover and Cole to Able City East, and they would finish the contract. The proposed scope of services remains the same. The dollar amount from the initial contract remains the same. The revision to the contract is the balance outstanding. So I don't know if any council members have any questions.
So I just want to make sure I understand this. So Dover and Cole, we awarded them the original contract, and now the person that was working on our particular project has left Dover and Cole and has started his own?
Correct. So if you chose to stay with Dover and Cole, you would no longer have access to Jason King and Pam Stacy King, two of the primary consultants on that team. One was the project manager and one was the project director. Now, during this transitional process, Jason King, along with Sean from Del Darius, have continued to work on and write the report associated with the scope of services, and that is ready for delivery in the next week or two.
All right.
So there's been no delay in the delivery of product.
Jamie, did you and do you now have any concerns, at least initially, about contracting with a firm like Dover and Cole, and then subsequently, based on a separation of certain partners and employees employed there, that we reassign the contract to this new entity? Any initial pause there?
Again, you've grown to know me, and I do not hide emotions or mix words. I did have some reservations when I was initially contacted in April by Jason King with regards to the changes at Dover and Cole and what was potentially a result of those changes. I have had the opportunity to speak further with Jason King. I also met the owners of Able City when I was at the Congress of New Urbanism in Cincinnati at a conference and spent a few hours speaking with them. I also spoke with the founding member, Victor Dover, one of the founding principals at Dover and Cole, about the transition, some of which they cannot completely disclose at this time, but he assured me that the way Dover and Cole functions is it's a 20-person so firm, but it's broken into project teams. And each project team stays intact almost entirely to work on projects. So if they have 5 teams, those 5 teams don't get interchanged and intermixed. So when you're assigned 5 people, those people may be working in South Kingston, then that same team's working in New Jersey, same team's working in California, and they're also working in Miami. The mixing of the teams don't change much. And he assured me that the way they operate, your team is intact. And even though the name is changing, access to your team members, and it was a discussion between the founding members and a equity partner and Jason King on how they were going to separate. And the conversation I had is that they actually encouraged Jason to break out on his own, that they thought it was time to cut his wings and do what he does best, which is urban planning and town design. So
Jamie,
again, those reservations are much less from an anxiety standpoint that I had in April.
So the makeup of the team that we're getting is the same now that it would have been had Jason not left Cover and Dole and everything remained as is with no separation.
Again, you have right now the full transition to Able East has been Jason and his wife Pam, subcontractors being Jeff Speck and Sean from Dedalius, and then we will have access to Cassie and Natalie, and those 2 positions are in transition.
All right.
So, but again, the team is intact.
Okay.
And where is Dover and Cole located?
So Dover and Cole is located in Coral Gables, Florida, and the new firm, Able City East, is located a few miles away from them. The other aspect is Jason and his wife Pam have purchased a home in New Bedford, and they will be there for the summer. So they'll actually be closer to us for a good portion of the year.
All right, I got another one for you, though. You know, we always talk about timing of things. You know, this has kind of been identified as a priority for a long time now. We finally got this firm in here. We had a great presentation, a good brainstorming session. Then obviously subsequently this comes to our table. So are we still in the timeline that we're moving in at the time when that meeting ended?
A good question. In my conversations with Jason King, which were via phone and in person in Cincinnati, he assured me that they are still on target for deliverables. In fact, they had a draft report that they wanted to release to us, but if Jason released it to us as a member of Able City East, I had no mechanism to pay Able City East. I would actually, if he gave me a report, it was Dover and Cole I wrote, being me, the town of South Kingston wrote the check for a product that someone else prepared. So he's been holding that draft report.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. That's deliverable in a week or two. It could be as early. If I told them a contract signed, but we still have some I's to dot and T's to cross, they'll deliver that product. So from my perspective, I've been assured that there are no delays in deliverables.
All right. Good.
A couple of the fine points on the contract being transferred. The memo references the $52,000 balance, and they're comfortable completing the project within that same total amount of 130?
Correct.
Okay. And Mike, you had also talked a few months ago about this being phase one and there being a phase two. There's no guarantee in either contract that we're committed to Able East?
No.
Correct.
For phase two?
Correct. There is none, and as has been stated by Jamie, the original contract has a provision on assignment, and you have the authority not to assign, because it can only be assigned with your authority. But it's also my recommendation, based on everything I've known and what it is, that you assign it, because you're going to get the same service from the same people.
I think that we might have another discussion after the report comes out and after this phase one is done.
Yeah, and I think in my conversations with Able City and the formation of Able City East, there was a discussion on expectations as well as a new division of a company and their expectations of deliverables, which could lead to the success and failure of your newly started company if you have a bad outcome in a current community you're working in, who will be one of your 1, 2, or 3 primary references for your new company. So Jason understands that, and in the discussions, I'll put him on the spot that he will over-deliver are his comments for what they have asked for contractually, or what the town has agreed to contractually.
All right, you got that in writing, right?
Again, we are tied to a very stringent scope of services and deliverables.
All right. Stay on them, Jamie. Let's move this along.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Motion to approve item 9L.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Right, that passes. Thank you, Jamie. All right, it's going to bring us to item 10, the town manager's report.
There are 2 items to address this evening. One is the update on the hydrilla grant that the town is getting. So for those that are tuning in, first time hearing about this, it's an invasive species that's in some of our ponds. Just doing a little research. There was a PowerPoint by DEM that I saw today, and it's all over New England. So I'll let Mike Stack, who is the our resource officer, natural resource officer, come up and discuss the status of the grant money and what we plan to do with it.
Good evening. As the manager referenced, we've been applying for multiple grants to address hydrilla here in town. And we've spoken in the past, I believe Luke's mentioned some of the items we've worked on. So we did apply to the Wood Pawcatuck Wild and Scenic Grant for public education material. That was unsuccessful, but they encouraged us to come back again. The non-point source implementation grant, you were informed earlier that we successfully awarded that grant. That's in process right now with DEM to come back to you for authorization. That's in the amount of $32,000, 412, for a boat wash station that would be installed at the Warden's Pond boat ramp. Hydrilla it's in the fall discovered at Warden's Pond. So I believe they may be bringing, so this is one of the boat wash stations that would potentially be installed at that location. That's what it looks like. It's actually no water. It's utilizing air, compressed air, and it's solar powered. There's brushes and there's items to remove the hydrilla and any other matter off of the boat so you're not transporting. That's how most likely it was introduced to these local water bodies, is through people launching their boats. They took them to areas that had hydrilla and they hitchhiked on the boats and went into these other ponds. And it's highly aggressive. Left untreated, it basically turns the waterway into an unusable waterway. It's just a mat of weed. It crowds all the native species out. So that's in process right now with DEM. We also applied for the Bay and Watershed Restoration Fund grant. That would be to chemically treat for 2 years Indian Lake, and also provide additional public outreach and boat wash station staffing at Indian Lake. This we applied with the understanding that DEM had received from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service funding to do the chemical treatment of hydrilla at Indian Lake this year. That RFP just closed on the 24th. I checked with DEM today. They don't have any information back yet, but the plan with that is that they will treat the hydrilla both with manual methods to remove it and also chemical methods. There'll be a whole process which is outlined in the RFP to notify all the homeowners around the pond, around the lake, what's going on. And then if we are successful in the Bay and Watershed Restoration Fund grant, that would continue that process because it's a multi-year process, and DEM has not committed beyond this year to do any treatment. They've also set up a Save the Lakes volunteer sign up for people to be at these lakes to let people know about hydrilla, how to clean their boats, etc. And we've applied for a lake management plan, which is something that we didn't have on the Indian Lake Saugatucket River watershed. So we weren't eligible for grant funding from certain federal sources because we didn't have that lake management plan in place in the state. So that's also pending. Hopefully we can get that, and that can address water quality issues, both plant and pollution, throughout the Indian Lake Saugatucket River watershed. And I believe that's where we stand. Happy to answer any questions or provide any more information on hydrilla. I know DEM provided pretty extensive information a few months back on that.
Any questions for Mike?
Just one quick question. You mentioned applying for the education grant. Is there anything being done by DEM with respect to educating the public, the boaters, about what to watch out for? Because this apparently transfers easily.
It does. It transfers very easily. Currently, the grant that they received from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the subsequent RFQ that has just closed will provide education. They're going to have paid, I guess they're not volunteers, so they'll be paid. They'll have people at Indian Lake to educate people on how to use the boat wash station, about hydrilla and other invasives. And then if we're successful with the Bay and Watershed Restoration grant, there's also a component in there to continue that education with part-time employees at these different locations.
Can we require the use of the boat washing machine? I know part of the problem is the boats exit the bodies of water, then they enter new bodies of water, and then it spreads. I feel like the only way to really stop it is to force, compel, mandate that it's used after it's taken out of the body of water.
Yeah, I'd defer to legal and possibly DEM on how that would work, but I know in other states they have very strict boat check processes in place in their freshwater bodies, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, because it's such a problem, both with plants, they have zebra mussels, things of that nature. So they're very particular. They actually have all these ramps staffed, and they actually have people that check your boat. It's required in order to use it, or they have permits that are issued to the boat assuring that you comply with that. DEM in the state of Rhode Island is kind of behind the 8 ball on all of this. In fact, they didn't even have a plan in place until hydrilla was discovered, so they're kind of playing catch up. So I would think that should probably come from the state level, because it's an issue statewide that's going to affect all the water bodies. We're kind of making this good faith effort because a lot of this money is federal money, and DEM is the grantor. So it's kind of they're kind of the pass-through. So we're applying for these funds in order to try and help mitigate this. But specific to your question, I couldn't answer that.
But we do anticipate the boaters will use it, right?
You'd like to think the people that are using it are going to be concerned about the health of the watershed and the water body that they're using. Fishermen, it's going to be unfishable at some point if left untreated, and it's not going to be, you can't swim in it. And certainly the people that live around there will be concerned.
Yep. All right.
They're free and open boat ramps because they were developed with federal fish and wildlife funds. So there's no way to restrict access to them. And in this instance, both of these waterways, they're actually state DEM boat ramps. They're not town access points to these waterways.
How is the water treated down the, I'm assuming down the road?
As far as for the mitigation of the hydrilla, so they have, it's used all over the country. There's other states that spend hundreds of millions of dollars addressing hydrilla. And there's I don't know if I'd say proven, but there's an accepted herbicide treatment as well as some manual work where they go in and they pull, depending on how thick it is and the area. But the herbicide treatment is the big cost. And they go in multiple times because it's so aggressive. It has to be treated multiple times. Ideally, it should be started early spring when it first starts growing, and then a half a dozen times throughout the summer. The way that the state purchasing and everything else in government's working, obviously we're into the summer at this point. But they are still looking to move forward, I believe, this summer. And also a component of that, I don't know if I mentioned, will be to survey Warden's Pond, because they don't know the extent currently of the hydrilla in Warden's Pond. So that's a component of this RFQ that they just, or RFP rather, that they just put out. So there would be the chemical treatment, the public education at Indian Lake and the boat wash station, and then determining what the extent of the infestation is at Warden Pond.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mike.
Sure thing.
The last item is, as usual, an update on the school building committee, and I'll have Luke Murray get up and give a briefing on that.
So just a short report tonight. As I mentioned earlier, the next building committee meeting is this Thursday at 4 o'clock. I did have a meeting today with the smaller project team. Right now, we're working on construction schedule, which we have one. That'll be discussed with the committee on Thursday, and we'll be sharing with the council. So it does have, as Chris iterated earlier, a hit date of next summer to really start construction. When school lets out, right now, we'd anticipate starting the process of those general conditions, start getting things prepped for construction, and then finishing up 100% drawings. At that point, we'd have that guaranteed maximum price. So expect that schedule will be rolled out. The other thing that the committee has asked Chris to do is really identify those points that people are interested in. One of those is, when are the athletic fields going to be built? When would the Curtis Corner School come down? When we would expect the existing school to come down post-construction of the new facility? So certain key milestones that we should be communicating effectively with the public so that you can be informed, you can inform the public on those dates. Right now, we're just really focused in on the contracts, the legal review of the architect contract. I sent it over today. I expect that on June 10th, we'll be bringing forth the Studio Jade Slam architect contract, similar to the construction manager at risk we did tonight, to be followed, as I mentioned previously, with a multitude of other contracts that are related to the project as we get through the design process. Does anyone have any questions?
is it worth having like a special meeting just to do like all of the school building contracts and reviews? Because it's a lot to like wedge it into a meeting.
That's completely the council's
How
discretion.
do you feel about one dedicated meeting, maybe a month, to just spend maybe 90 minutes and just do that topic?
Like a work session prior to a meeting?
It sounds like you don't want to have a special meeting, but I'm just wondering, because it's already 9:30 and things, you know, like in the agenda, it comes at the end. Does anybody feel like once a month we could identify the other Monday and just do school building, if it made sense? If Luke's coming with 5 or 6 contracts and we want to talk about them and understand them.
How much time do you think you need from us?
Yeah, so I think the next big contract's the architect contract. That'll be one. That'll be on the June 10th, we anticipate, right? Then we also have the OPM, which is another larger contract. Once we get beyond those, the contracts get slimmer, right? And we have less as we go. It's really dependent on how far down, like tonight, I think was a great conversation. You saw the length of time that would take, so it's really up to the council. I wouldn't anticipate bringing more than one contract of this size to the council in any one meeting.
Okay.
I mean, I think the way it was presented to us tonight worked. He was given a good segment of time to explain to us. We had specific requests that we wanted explained. He walked through it. We asked questions. I like that. If it can work where we get, one contract at a time, like the one presented, I think that works. I don't know if it's necessary to have a special meeting dedicated to certain contracts.
And I would assume some of this is going to be in series anyway. You have to have A done before you get to B, before you get to C.
Right, we're really focused on the architect and the construction manager. Obviously, we already have the OPM working. We need to get to that contract. That's a concern. But you're right. Some of the other agreements that we need to strike will come in series, may not be even in the same month. So it's completely up to the council.
I mean, if it gets to a point where it's too much, we can always do it. I just think the way it worked tonight, I thought it worked well.
And you don't have to, one thing to keep in mind, you don't always have to make a determination that night. If there's something like, if you're on an agenda and you're like, we can't handle this tonight, we can always push it. So, you always have that option as a council, obviously.
And the other side of the coin, I think, would apply too. If you get a logjam of 10 things that you need on a short-term basis, the town manager can ask us to call a special meeting.
Absolutely.
I think as long as it's just one, it's okay, but if it's a lot of real heavy contract stuff, especially at, later on in the evening, I think it is hard, but as long as it maintains the same pace that we had tonight, I would be okay with it.
Obviously, we're in lockstep with the manager, and the manager, I know, communicates regularly with the council, so we'll just keep that line open.
Maybe we can keep the meetings that they're going to have the presentation late, and then that will shorten the evening, so.
We're already 3
Which
hours
presentation?
in.
Which presentation?
Any of the contracts coming up.
Okay. All right. So we'll continue as we're doing for now. We'll sort of approach it as it comes along. And if there's nights where there's several contracts, we'll have to consider whether we want a special meeting to take them all up, as opposed to just jamming them in at a regular session. Make sense?
Roger that.
All right. Thank you.
Good.
Just on that note, we have boards and commissions once a month, but we'll prioritize any of these contracts to start it earlier, whether it's 6:30 or 7, get a good hour before the meeting so you can really look at them. But that's all I have for town manager's report.
Chris,
All right. Thank you, Jim.
you probably couldn't sleep without.
All right.
Yeah.
That's now going to bring us to Public comments, formerly known as comments from interested citizens. At this point, I invite anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to come on up. We're just going to limit you to 5 minutes. You can use this counting down clock, which will begin when you start speaking, as a way to pace yourself. And we just ask that you identify yourself. So with that said, first come, first serve. Come on up. Come on up, Bob.
You don't have to. You don't.
Oh, Bob, can you push the...
Okay, anyway. I'm sitting there, you know, I decided to come tonight. I missed one meeting, I think, but I've told you many times that I come because I need to come. But I would think that this particular meeting had so much information in it that any person that has an active mind would benefit from listening to all of it. The presentations that were made, I missed most of this because it was earlier than 7:30. I would have liked to be here for that whole meeting. What they were talking about is something that's on my mind all the time. And I'm going to just make one comment about that, because there's so many things. You could spend a whole week on that committee. You're just talking about things that need to be done. But selling property in the town, that is, and I think I hear from the council, you're very cognizant of the fact that you've got to be careful and you've got to know what you're doing with things. But the general thing in my mind is that when we have property, hold on to it and use it for the benefit of the town. And it sounds like they were trying to do that with some of the buildings that were being discussed and whatever. And I was glad to hear a number of things that I heard. There's no sense in, you can't. The other thing that came up was the health care issue. That's on my mind all the time, because I recently had open heart surgery and I got the best health care you could ever get. And then 4 weeks later, my wife died. And she didn't get the best health care that she could have got. She got some great health care, but she didn't get the best, because you can't get a regular doctor anymore. I'm going to discuss that with somebody at the hospital eventually, if they'll let me sit down with a few top people that make big decisions. Anyway, the general thing on health care is we have to figure out a way that it's not for profit. We've got to do it in this country, and I don't want to use the word, I'll just say it, but it isn't the word that I'm focusing on. It doesn't have to be government. Because the minute you say certain things, you're put in some kind of a box in this country. It's very difficult to have a real conversation, or to get enough people together to have a real back and forth conversation, but they are needed big time right now in this country. And we're going to have, come November, whoa. Anyway, and the general thing was my response to the situation here is I like to come because I like to hear what people have to say, and I found that this particular meeting was full of expertise, of people getting up, knowing what they were talking about, communicating it to you guys that have to make some of the decisions, and I think that's what it's all about. So I'm really comfortable about South Kingstown right now, and somebody said it here a while ago, and I forget who said it, but I'm in that group. I find the questions you guys ask are pointed and usually well taken, and not that I'm any expert on anything. I'm probably the least expert of anything, but I think of the big picture more than the little picture. And the big picture is very, very gruesome right now, even though we're in the most beautiful place, probably one of the most beautiful places in the world. I talked to a young couple that came down Skipstock. I happened to be down there on my boat, and they were visiting here, and I could tell they hadn't been here before. And so I talked with them for about 20 minutes. You know I'm capable of that. I can go 2 hours, 3 hours easy. But anyway, they were a nice young couple, and It was great to talk with them and to get to point out what a place that is, where they were standing, looking over Galilee. It's one of the most nicest spots there is anywhere. I've been around a little bit. I've been to Japan. I've been all over Europe. I've seen things, and there was a lot of beautiful things everywhere. But this is one of them. We got a lot of them here in Rhode Island. And on that note, I'll say it again, thank you for what you do. And you got a lot to do from what it seems to me right now. From what I heard tonight, you guys, I don't know how you process it all. I really don't know how you do it. But, you know, you gotta listen and you gotta come up with something, and you do. You have to, you're the decision maker, so. Good luck, and I think we're on a road, a good road. But I think all of the things I heard tonight make me realize that there are some people here that are on, they're thinking and knowing what needs to be done. And I thought that presentation by Gilbane, was that a person from Gilbane that was speaking? Well, anyway, it's one of the best presentations I've heard here. I've heard a few. I thought he gave an excellent outline. That was an education for an architect or an engineer or anybody to listen to him, hit all those points on what things have to be done and the types of decisions that have to be made. So it's really interesting. I think that was a highly educational meeting tonight. I would hope people are watching. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, anyone else in the audience wish to come up?
Hi, I'm Jack Cadman. I'm from Wakefield. I was originally not planning to speak at all and just bring this up afterwards, but I thought I'd just put it on the record. So I was at a meeting of the Affordable Housing Committee earlier this week, and the same topic was discussed, and I thought I'd bring it up. So there's a limit. I mean, it was in today's agenda on the amount of liquor licenses you can give out in the town. I was discussing this with some people. Why is there no limit on the number of banks that can be in the town? There are 9 banks on the Main Street area. There's going to be a 10th built right there. They don't really, I don't know. I don't like all the banks on Main Street. It's not like the banks in the early 1900s where they're really connected with the community or anything. They're mostly just these one-room buildings that are in there with an ATM and a teller you go in. You know, it doesn't really serve much of a purpose. I don't like all the banks. A lot of people I know don't like all the banks. What's the deal with all the banks? I don't know. I just want to put it out there. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. All right. Yo, I'm going to add that to the agenda. I'll make a motion to add that to the agenda. The discussion regarding the number of banks in town and the ability of the town to regulate it. All right.
Jack.
All right.
So are we going to add it to the agenda?
If we want to, I just wanted a quick
Well,
legal opinion to opine on the matter, to discuss it quickly, and then go from there. But
We don't need to add to the agenda if Mike's going to respond.
So the reason that you can regulate liquor licenses is because there is a state law that permits every town and city in the state of Rhode Island. This is pretty much true throughout the country after Prohibition, the amendment, which eliminated Prohibition, gave the powers to the states, and then the states gave that power down to the municipalities, the ability to regulate and control alcohol, because at one point it was a controlled substance, and of course it is a serious issue in society in general to deal with the effects of alcoholism, etc. So there's specific legislation that allows that. With regard to banks, retail stores, you choose whatever, that's commerce. And the Constitution basically says that you can't impede commerce. So it's open to competition, and if 10 banks feel they can do business in the town and be successful at it, they can. The only way that municipalities can control banks, because that was your question, is through zoning. So those banks can't be in a residential neighborhood or an industrial area. They can only be in areas that are zoned for business. That's really the only control that any municipality has. They could not arbitrarily just say there will be no more than 10 or 1 or 15 banks, because that would interfere with the right of commerce and trade, et cetera. I hope that helps, but... Okay.
All right. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak? I invite you to just come on up. All right, so now we're going to move on to communications. 12A is an email dated May 12, 2024 from Maureen Dunnigan in opposition to the Rhode Island Department of Transportation's plan to add 100 new parking spaces at the Kingston train station. Maureen, if you are here, come on up. All right, seeing she's not, Jim, you want to give a little brief as to this?
Sure. As you stated, an email came in from Ms. Dunnigan regarding, as a complaint that she was not in support of 100 new spaces at the Kingston station. That property in its entirety is owned by the Rhode Island Department of Transportation. And I called the deputy director there, Bob Rocchio, who's a resident here, and we spoke about it. So Luke, do you have the map you can put up? So you'll see that that map right there is the entirety of the Kingston train station owned by the Rhode Island Department of Transportation. Then if you look at the next slide, right there. If you can see in the blue, that's where the expansion will be. It's at the end of the bike path. It's in the south side of the parking lot. And DOT, quite honestly, was surprised that anyone was complaining. They said they've gotten more outreach thanking them for expanding that parking lot. I go in that lot all the time. My daughter lives in New York. She comes home on the train. My wife goes visits her. She goes on the train. That parking lot is packed. You couldn't find a spot if you wanted to. And a lot of people are blaming the URI students, but quite honestly, I don't see it. And the reason is, why would they park there and commute to URI when you go to the Ryan parking lot and it's empty? Why not just park there and walk to campus? I'm sure sometimes...
Because that's not how the parking, that Ryan Center parking, there's commuter parking, there's resident parking, so that is for events. So if you're a resident student, as a first-year student, we have 3,000 first-year students, they don't have a parking permit.
So the lot over by Keeney Gym, that massive parking lot, that's what I'm really talking about. That one's empty. That's a residential parking lot, right? It's not?
Commuter, it's a commuter lot. And then first-year students, of which there are 3,000, they don't have a parking permit at all. So you have students who are looking for parking, and that is a non-metered, you can dump your car there Monday through Friday and pick it up.
Hasn't URI just sent out a message, though, telling students they cannot park there?
They did.
Yeah. Bottom line, I mean, you work there, so you know the business. I don't. But I go in and I'm not like a meter maid, but I'll look at the lots. There's a lot of different cars a lot of different times. So I'm sure there's some people from URI then, but there's also people from the bike path. The one thing why DOT is so hot on this, number one, there was it's a congressional delegation priority. There's an earmark to do this. That's one, by a senator. Two, the Rhode Island buses, okay, that's where they are now planning to do like a hub in South County. They were going to do it at URI, but there was an issue with Plains Road that there was not enough access. Who owns the road? We own some of it. That it would take a lot to get buses in and out of there. So this is that new intermodal transportation hub that is proposed. So, it will only make sense to put more spaces. I don't see the downside in it. I mean, it's gonna have a lot more spaces. People will be able to go to the bike path. People will be able to park with the train. A lot more people taking trains now. So that's
Consistent with our long-range goals for reducing carbon emissions. So I think that we want to encourage more people to use transportation. So I don't see a downside, especially if there's an earmark, like.
And quite honestly, this is the first complaint I've seen at the town level for that.
I agree with you. The parking lot is well used at the train station. It's hard to get a spot. I do think people are using Amtrak. You can book ahead. You can go to Logan for $9 one way.
Yeah.
It's a deal. We should be not driving as much as possible, and so it's a great thing. I don't know why this person is upset.
Deb, one last thing though on this. If that lot at Keeney is empty 90% of the time, shouldn't URI let people park there instead of a train station?
The one that you're talking about on the front side by Boss,
Yes.
it's commuter. It's a commuter
When do you
lot.
go by there that it's empty, like on the weekends?
I just go by that a lot, and I don't see a lot of vehicles.
So are you saying the commuters are not using the Kingston train station? Because if they were commuters, they could use there.
If you don't have a parking permit, they're going to find you because they just read the plates and they know who doesn't have a parking permit and they flag
Okay.
you.
So people without parking permits are parking at train
Are
station.
bootlegging and they're parking at the train station. It's only 2 miles. We have a shuttle that swings through there and picks people up and they can
Okay.
return to campus.
When the email came in, it struck me as odd that she was complaining about not being able to park, but then objecting to having more parking available. I think she's focused in on the wrong solution. DOT may need to regulate somewhat the parking there. If you've got a train ticket, park there. If you don't have a train ticket, go at a meter. If you go beyond the meter, you get ticketed. That should move some of the traffic.
Agree.
But it's not our problem.
I agree. If I were to tell DOT, they have to find some way to organize their parking or figure out who's really not on a train.
Yeah, I mean, let's think about the enforcement part of it, though. Who would enforce it? The state police. They're going to give out parking tickets at Kingston train station. I think the 100 spaces will greatly help the problem we have there. So, and it'll help people for the bike path, too. That was all part of the plan. Bring the bike path, dump it onto the DOT property. They help pay for the bike path. So I don't see the downsides.
When I said not our problem, I mean not our jurisdiction.
Yeah.
All right, do I hear a motion to place this on file?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, it's placed on file. It's going to move us to item B, resolutions adopted May 13, 2024 by the Charlestown Town Council in support of House Bill H 7892 and Senate Bill S 2629 that would authorize city and town councils to regulate houseboats in any public waters within their jurisdiction. Mike Ursula, we're going to go to you on this.
So, the legislation's good. Unfortunately, it's been committed for further study. So my guess is it won't go anywhere. But basically, the concern is that in some communities, there are companies and or people that are turning houseboats into Airbnbs. And that's adding just another whole layer of issues on short-term rentals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say, if I was sitting in your seats, support the legislation, and I'll let you know where it goes.
Yeah, in Rhode Island, committed to committee means committed to eternity.
I just make a motion to put this one on file. If it's held for further study, it's not going anywhere.
We can support it in the next legislative session.
Yeah.
I would still do it. I think, we've started the short-term rental registry. There's actually been reports in the media about people buying marinas in order to have a development of houseboats for Airbnb, which we're a coastal town, it would magnify our issues.
If Deb's was a motion, I would second it.
Me too.
All right. You got the motion and support?
But apparently not a second. Yes, I would move to support have the resolution of support.
Yep, you got a second.
Seconded hers.
All right, so can we go
All right.
rewind these a little bit? What was Deb's?
There was
I was
no
just going to put it
motion
on
made.
file. Do you not want to do that?
I do think that preemptively it might be a good thing to have on file, because it does not surprise me at all that people are buying marinas to set up a little village of houseboats. And if somebody wants to do that, I think that it needs to be under our jurisdiction. So I think I would be, happy to do that preemptively.
Just procedurally, the first motion you need to deal with, which was to put on file. Greg, you said you seconded that. So you have discussion on that, have a vote, and then depending on where that goes, you can go to Mike's motion.
All right, there's a motion to place this on file, which essentially is do nothing with it, not support it, not get behind the resolution, do not send it to our support to the state legislature. There's been a motion, there's a second, any discussion? I will be voting in favor of adopting support of this resolution, so I'm going to be voting no to this, to make that clear. So all in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Everyone opposed? Nay. All right. That does not pass. It gets defeated 2-3. Is there another motion to consider here?
Motion to support item 12B and ask the clerk to prepare a resolution in support of these bills.
All right.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. All right, it's going to bring us to item C. An email dated May 13, 2024 from Dorothy Hill, Chairperson, Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, requesting support for a 2024 state bond referendum relating to the capital development program that would provide $25 million for the bicycle mobility plan, House Bill H7918. I don't believe Dorothy is here tonight. Mike, can we go to you on this one too?
So obviously, this bill is just providing money for expansion of opportunities throughout the state for more bike paths, more pedestrian-friendly, basically bike paths and support of anything that has to do with making us all get out of our cars. So,
all right, I can get behind this one. I'll make a motion to approve item C.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, that passes. It's going to bring us to item D, an email dated May 2024 from Mark DeMorinville, Chairperson, Sustainability Committee, requesting support for passage of the Composting and Waste Diversion Act, House Bill H7856 and Senate Bill S2753. Mark, come on up.
I'll be brief. I've been on the Sustainability Committee of the town for close to 4.5 years now, and when I did my interview in early 2020, the one substantive question I was asked was, do you have any thoughts on waste stream management? And at the time I didn't. But for the past 4+ years now, the Sustainability Committee has been obsessing over composting, reducing the waste stream, etc. We have talked about it a lot. We've kind of turned over every rock in trying to think about ways that the town can support increased composting, increased public awareness of composting, etc. We've spoken to people from other parts of the country. And, for a long time, the only solution we could reasonably come up with, given the constraints, was just promoting public education and public awareness about composting and encouraging people to do it. Earlier this year, though that changed when, thanks to the efforts of Rich Bourbonnais, the town made an arrangement with Black Earth Compost to have composting bins at the transfer station. And that's a huge step in the right direction. We believe that composting should be something that is increasingly adopted by all because, and this is driven, by the way, by the understanding that the landfill is scheduled to close in about 15 years, and then what do we do from there? Tipping fees are going to potentially go up astronomically. My understanding is that Massachusetts now ships its waste out of state via train. And so we have this opportunity to pass this legislation, the Composting Act, which will create a fund through a $2 per ton surcharge on waste that would make 50% of all funds collected available to municipalities for non-competitive grants to promote composting infrastructure, public education, possibly composting bins available to citizens, etc. So we would like to ask the council to support the resolution, the draft resolution, and in support of this bill.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Any questions?
No, I think this is a really great thing to do. If you're not composting already, you should be, because it's super easy. And I know Rich told me the other day that he has those bins, 100. Did you say that too? 100? Rich has a grant for 100 bins for home composting as well.
Is he still here?
Did I make that up, Rich? No, I did. Not 100. 100 bins for people to compost. So we should get behind this, and then we can get people realizing that you can reduce your waste, household waste, you can reduce your trash, you can save money, because if you take out all of that, what you're really in recycling, you're probably having less than a bag per household. So it can save you money if you drop your waste hauler as well.
My understanding is that there are 12 other states that have adopted something very similar to this act. And again, it's about saving money. Tipping fees are only going to get higher over time. Needless to say, the town can make up the cost of the surcharge through reduced waste. Those calculations have been made as well. So.
All right, thank you, Mark. Do I hear a motion there?
Motion to draft resolution to support House Bill 7856 and Senate Bill 2753.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
All right. Item E is an email dated May 17, 2024 from Christopher Moore tendering his resignation from the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee effective May 20, 2024.
Make a resolution that we accept Chris Moore's resignation from the BPAC and direct the town clerk to thank him for his service to the town.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. It's going to bring us to item F, a communication dated May 22, 2024 from Lori Miller Horton concerning pedestrian safety issues near the Patty Hill Road neighborhood in Peacedale. Lori, come on up.
This is the last item on tonight's agenda, but I think that it is the most important item that you'll consider tonight. This isn't just about money or paperwork. This is about lives and real people. Summer's here. Patty Hill Road, for those of you who haven't looked at it lately, comes down right into the travel lane of Kersey Road. There's a very steep bank on one side and no shoulder on the other side of Patty Hill Road. There is no place for the families on Patty Hill Road to safely cross Kersey Road. There is no way for them to go left or right. They have no choice but to cross Kersey Road. So we're talking about high school students who have to cross Kersey Road in the morning. Your 14-year-old is half asleep, and they're trying to cross Kersey Road at the same time the URI students are flying by, half asleep or hungover, and texting on their phone. This is a horrendously dangerous situation. There are 14 families on Patty Hill Road. There are between 16 and 18 children of school age or younger that live there. They live in town because they want to be close to the guild, to the camps, to the library, and the schools. They cannot get anywhere. They are essentially an island in this town unless they walk across Patty Hill Road. They can't even get to the brand new playground at Peacedale Elementary School. The elementary school kids on Patty Hill are bused from the bottom of Patty Hill Road 450 feet to the Peacedale driveway to get to Peacedale Elementary School. This should not be. It's an awful situation. I've spoken to Town Manager Manny, Chief Moynihan. I've spoken to Chief Vespia years ago. We couldn't get anything done years ago because Kersey Road was 108. It was a state road at that time. That's no longer the case. There is no longer any excuse for the town not putting a crosswalk from Patty Hill Road across Kersey. You've got mothers with kids two little kids in wagons and double strollers coming down Patty Hill Road with a wagon with 2 toddlers in it. Try and picture yourself crossing Kersey Road with all that traffic and trying to get the wagon up over the curb on the other side before the next car whizzes by. Just think about it. It's a terrible situation. Everybody, the town manager, the police chief, the Rich Bourbonnais, all look at it and go, oh yeah, this is terrible. This is really dangerous. I wouldn't want to cross here, much less my kids. But nothing has been done. Absolutely nothing. I've been beating this drum for years, and it's time that the town council took action because nobody else in this town has been able to make anything happen. I don't know what it takes, but we're not talking about just convenience. We're not talking about, oh, they have to walk an extra 2 blocks to get to a safe crossing. We're talking about 0 opportunity for a safe exit from Patty Hill Road to anywhere in this town, by foot or by bicycle, for 14 families. And all it would take is a crosswalk. Put some stripes on the road and hopefully, ideally, a curb cut on the other side. But at least the stripes on the road. There is no way to put partial sidewalks on. There's no way to get to either stop. I've looked at the situation. Town Manager Manny, the Chief of Police, Rich Bourbonnais has looked at it, and it's time to stop bouncing this hot potato around between town employees and everybody else. I'm asking the town council, each of you tonight, to take a vote to direct the Town Works Department to put a crosswalk on Patty Hill Road before there's a horrible tragedy. I don't think you want that on your consciences.
All right, thank you, Lori. Rich, come on up here. Oh, sorry, you wanted to speak on this? Come on up. We usually limit it to the communication center, but go ahead.
Well, that's why I asked you.
Oh, go up, right here. Gotta go to the microphone.
I did ask if I had to sign in or anything when I came, but they said no. So my name is Catherine Canavan, and I do live in Narragansett, but my daughter and her family, the grandchildren, all live on Patty Hill. So as Laurie stated, this has been going on for years. Now, the oldest child is graduating high school, and he was little when this all first started. Now the youngest is 5 years old, and we're still in the same situation. I pull that wagon and try to get the children across the street so we can go to the Guild playground, and I have to stop in the street with 2 little ones, because she might have brought a friend or whatever, and I have to lift it up, first the front, then the back, onto the sidewalk so I can walk down the street. And as Laurie stated, you've got the college kids zipping down. Now, we've been doing this for a few years. I've been, standing up too for it. They've been saying no because there's not enough space on the road. Once you come down the hill, they won't see it. That's not correct. There's plenty of space once you come over the hill to go and put a crosswalk from Patty Hill over to the sidewalk. We can't get to Peacedale. That's a school right there. And if suppose a child doesn't, my granddaughter, first day of school, she went across the street on her own because they didn't have her wait for her mom. And she crossed that street all by herself. First day of school, kindergarten. So we need to be looking at that street a lot more effectively for these children. And as I said, these are my grandchildren. And I walk across that street and it's dangerous. And there's plenty of room to do something about that. When you had your meeting on safety around Peacedale, and they were talking about the rotary, and you're going to change all the sidewalks in the streets. I walk that rotary. I've gone to the businesses. I've walked across the street in a crosswalk. There's no problem there. But I can't walk across Kersey Road with my granddaughter safely. So the planning people who had that workshop, they took one look at their plans and where Kersey Road was, and they were like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. They all agreed. And then all of a sudden, DPW or somebody said that there wasn't enough space. Well, that's not true because Laurie's measured it. So thank you for your time. I just want to let you know that it's not just coming out of left field. This has been years. Thank you.
Thank you. Rich, come on up. All right, obviously pretty compelling. I know this road. I used to walk down. I used to go to Peacedale Elementary, walk home from school down Kersey. Not up to Patty Hill, but I know exactly where it is. Seems pretty reasonable request. What can we do?
So the problem with this spot, and what I've explained, is that when you're coming from North Road, it's very easy to see Patty Hill from North Road. It's maybe 200 feet. There's a crosswalk there, by the way, but it's clear, it's flat, it's easy. The problem is coming from the other direction. When you're coming over the hill, you're coming down grade, all those things factor in when you're determining stopping sight distances. And in this case, I'm not even looking at stopping sight distance, I'm looking at decision sight distance, which is even more strict. And the problem is you're coming by the school, there's a lot of activity, and there's a lot going on. You're going around the bend, you're coming up over the hill. The roadway gets very, very narrow through there. I mean, I would ask that you go and drive it from that position as though there's a lot going on at the school. And when you come up over that hill, by the time you get on, you're right on Patty Hill. And when the decision site distance that I come up with is 500 feet. So that's over by the entrance of the school. You can't even see someone in that crosswalk at their head. You're looking at because it's, you're about, I think it's almost 8 to 10 feet, maybe more higher. You're looking at the tops of the telephone poles in that area. So I just can't bring myself to suggest. First of all, I don't like mid-block crossings anyways, and I know that that Miss Horton is going around town and noticed all the mid-block crossings. They're all on state roads. I don't know that we have very few. We have one on Kersey, but that's usually got a crossing guard on it. So this spot is just particularly difficult. I understand the concerns. Children can walk in the shoulder, and they can go to North Road. They can cross at North Road. There's a crosswalk there. It's a couple hundred feet away. Just to say that, well, this is the end of my road, I want a crosswalk here, it's just not meeting the warrants. I'm sorry. I cannot make it work. I've put in other crosswalks in town. I've worked with the chief on other spots in town where we thought we needed a crosswalk. And when the warrants are there, I'm all in. It's not even something that if we decide we'd like to bring things here, but we don't even necessarily have to. I mean, something like if it was in a significant spot, we might bring it here. But these aren't even in the ordinance. It's not like a stop sign, in other words. But in this case, I just can't get myself to do it.
So if you can't get behind a crosswalk, is there anything you can get behind here?
Well, so, you could put sidewalks up and down this road. The problem between this point and the school is, and again, if you're there, it slopes up right from the road. So you're talking, walls, curbing, all of it. It's a pretty significant project, and it's not something that's coming out of our operating budget, so to speak.
Good.
Can you break down the calculations that you were talking about? You said decision-making time, I assume, is also based on the speed limit on the street?
It is.
And are we back into the manual and uniform traffic control devices?
No,
Okay.
we're in Asheville. We're
This
in
is
Asheville.
National? Okay.
Asheville.
What's that?
Asheville. The American Association of State and Highway and Transportation Officials. So it's actually a design guide. MUTC deals with signage and paint. AASHTO deals with geometric design.
Okay.
And it includes stopping sight distances. So we look at, okay.
Well, what I'm wondering is, if you've got those different calculations, if you change one of the factors in the calculation, it may come up with a different result.
It does.
So if there were a different speed on the road, would that change the decision-making time in a way that a crosswalk would make sense?
Going from 25 to 20, let's say, does not make a significant enough difference. The problem I'm having is when I look at decision sight distance, I'm using a time variable that's so high that it's much higher than normally you would use 2.5 seconds. Stopping sight distance is calculated from two things, and it's common sense. It's the time it takes you to think you have to stop, and the time it takes you to stop your vehicle, the physical part of the vehicle. That's where the geometry comes into play. The slope of the road, those things, they affect how quickly a car can stop. The decision part is based on, what's going on around you. And in this case, there's so much activity at the school to just come over the hill and then go down. It just doesn't work. And I'll add that this was addressed 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And the decision at that time was to add the bus stop because they just couldn't get it to work. And regardless of whether it's a state road or not, the state can put in crosswalks, and they do. They have them up and down High Street everywhere.
I know when this came up before, you and the chief had worked on this together. Do we have any data on problems, accidents, injuries, issues on
We haven't
Kersey?
gone that deep. We haven't gone that deep on it. I haven't. No.
No, we haven't looked at crash data in this location, but, when we look at crosswalks, we just had a young woman hitting a crosswalk up on 138. Just putting a crosswalk in doesn't prevent someone being struck. And I couldn't agree more with what Rich is saying about the sightline picture and the speeds that are there. Someone coming over that crest of the hill, whether they're going, 30, and we've seen, we do have data on speed on Kersey Road, which we did that study several months ago, and they are excessive speeds that are going through there. And so we have an initiative right now where we're adding flags to crosswalks because it's that added exposure. It's not it's not going to be the safe plan to put a crosswalk in there and have children cross when the speeds are what they are, and giving people a false hope that they're now safe because they're in a painted lane.
Well, the disconnect that I'm having is, and I understand that aspect of it, you don't want to have a crosswalk that gives false hope. But right now, they're crossing without a crosswalk. The danger, it seems to me, is the same.
So the solution would be sidewalks. Put sidewalks on that side of the street.
How do you do that? Is eminent domain?
Who owns the property abutting the road there?
What's the
Well,
distance over?
the right of way is so wide, and I'm not sure where the right of way is, but it would be many of the individuals on Patty Hill. They would own the property on that side. If you were going to put a sidewalk going towards the school, You could put a sidewalk going in the other direction. But again, there we have a shoulder.
How many feet are you talking from Patty Hill to Peacedale School to put a sidewalk in?
It's approximately 400 feet or 500 feet.
But you can go the other way, and there is a crosswalk.
Down by North Road, yes.
But no one realistically is going to do that.
What?
Realistically, no one's going to do that. No one's going to take a left, go all the way down to the crosswalk, cross, and then go down Kersey Road.
Well, so I get requests all the time for crosswalks, and it's usually from a business. I want a crosswalk in front of my business. And, you just can't put them everywhere. Sometimes you just have to walk a little further, cross, and then come back, if that's what you're doing. If we're suggesting that people are going to the high school, well, they're going to go down to North Road perhaps anyways. So to say that they have to come down that hill and cross right at that point where it's unsafe, regardless of whether there's a crosswalk there or not, just doesn't make sense to me.
See, they're already saying, we could force it, right? Put a crosswalk there. It doesn't make it any safer. In fact, we become the decision maker, that then there's an assumption of, you guys told me this was safe, I did it exactly the way you wanted, and then somebody, URI student, high school student, anybody, hits them in the crosswalk, and we're responsible. I hear what they're saying, because when you travel, sometimes you have to, and when you're walking, the way to cross isn't necessarily the most efficient way, but it's the safest way. So we have the ability to educate the people that if that's the most safe way, then it is longer. It's just what it is.
Hold on. If you're going to speak, you got to come up. We don't want you to just yell from the audience.
I understand. There doesn't seem to be a obvious, easy solution. So we're trying to, I think, work with what we have to the best ability to try to fix it.
Come on up.
Mr. Bourbonnais, this is not quite not what my research shows. It is correct. The stopping sight distance depends on three things: reaction distance, braking distance, and the brake application. AASHTO uses all the calculations, and they do all these calculations for the states. And I have it right here. If the vehicle speed is 20 miles an hour, the stopping sight distance for reaction, braking, and stopping the vehicle is 115 feet. As I said in my letter on page 2, the footnote, I have the documentation right here, and I can show you. We have 400 feet of vision from the crest of the Patty Hill light at ground level, 400 feet from there to where a crosswalk would be. That is enough sight-stopping distance, reaction, braking, and stopping for a car going between 45 and 50 miles an hour. And the cars aren't going quite that fast. So we have more than enough time per the AASHTO regulations, and I'd like for Mr. Bourbonnais to tell me why 400 feet is not enough stopping time when AASHTO says we only need 115 in a 20-mile-an-hour speed zone. And you're talking about convenience. I'm talking about no way to go left or right. If you want to make it inconvenient, you've still got to take land with public domain, deal with drainage issues, put in a curb, and put it in the construction improvement project, and God knows how many years that would take to do it. We can do a crosswalk right now, and it does more than meet the AASHTO regulations.
All right. Thank you. Rich, come on up. Chief. We're kind of limiting it to that for now. Is there a way we can do a further study on this, study the current traffic patterns, see what the levels of speed are there, look into if in fact we reduce the speed limit to 20, how that factors into this formula you spoke of, and sort of go from there? Does that make sense, or does that not make sense?
We can do it. I mean, I've calculated it. It's not gonna, it's not.
With how
but we
current
can
of
certainly-
data?
We can certainly review it a little bit more.
You have someone that is disputing your formulas here.
Right, she's not taking into account slope, and also, like I said, I'm looking at decision stopping distance, not just sight distance, sight stopping. They're different, okay. No, I know.
This is,
All right.
Okay.
Well,
But
we're just trying to.
we can certainly look at it more.
We're just trying to address the concerns of a citizen. We happen to all know the area, recognize that there is, increased speeds happening on that road right near Peacedale School. Certainly an inconvenience if you have to go all the way down to, North Road across the street to get on Kersey. I acknowledge that. So whatever we can do to look into this further to see if there is any possibility. If not, that's fine. You guys are the experts. But we just would like, some sort of report, if you could, with respect to this.
I would very much like to know what the cost of sidewalks would be. Can we get an idea of what sidewalks cost, like per square foot, and just do the math so we know what an actual solution would cost? Because
I could estimate, but again, which direction? Maybe the whole stretch from North Road all the way to the school. But we can do an estimate for what the sidewalks would cost and the walls that you would need, which is going to be significantly more than the sidewalk. So we can do that.
Okay, because it sounds like that's really the solution that's needed, although it's not easy or cheap, but would be safe.
Chief, can you get some data with respect to car speed on Kersey? I know it's an awful tight
No, we
site
have that
for
already.
the full signboard. You have it?
We have that. It wouldn't
Okay.
be, that was part of our school zone study that we did in all of our school zones, so I have that speed. Again, it was done during late fall. It would be something we could update, but we do have some data that we
All
can
right,
look
no,
at.
if you've got the data, I'll just take a look at that.
Yes.
Thanks.
And I know at that time, we also discussed increasing patrols in that area, but I understand from what we discussed at that time, it's not really a great place for us to have officers. I got a ticket there when I went to URI, but it's a lot more cars now,
You know,
right?
as Rich indicated, there's a lot going on there, and to have, an officer there all the time to try to reduce that is, we're going to have that speeding problem. It is a school zone. We have talked about automated cameras that would be permissible in the school zone area during the times of schools. That would be something else to explore, but it's still, there's going to be times that children are going to want to use that crosswalk outside of school hours during the summer months. That doesn't apply. So, you have to weigh out the safety, and I think there's, given the studies that Rich has done, that you're looking at putting people in a crosswalk when we're talking about impaired driving, other distractions that are happening, and giving people a false hope of, or a false sense of security of being there and safe, and I just don't, that is our focus of using the flags now, to try to spread more awareness that just because you're in the crosswalk doesn't mean that you're 100% safe from either an impaired driver, someone who's driving fast, or distracted, and that threat could be, could cause you harm.
I'm just wondering if there's some, I think if people had a fear that they were going to be stopped in that area, and if they saw it a few times, maybe it would make a difference, I still would like to see more traffic stops in that area, and just while we try to keep the community safe and however we can. So that, I would really like to see that.
Great.
All right. Any thoughts?
At the risk of asking a stupid question, can you put a push-button red light like they have on Main Street where the bike path is, on the on both sides of the street, I guess? Excuse me, on both sides of the street. I don't mean a red light that goes across the street. I mean red lights on the poles on either side.
I'm for, there's a lot of different ways to stop traffic if we wanted to stop traffic there. I'm not sure what the warrants would be for something like that. We're talking about a very small group of homes, and I understand it's important. And I get it, it's important. I'm not trying to be dismissive, but, I'm just not sure how that would work, frankly. And again, it would still be somewhat of an anomaly. You're coming up over the hill, all of a sudden there's a light. It's still something that requires you have to be able to know it's there. And just advance warnings aren't always what it needs. We all see those advanced stop signs, but then all of a sudden the stop sign's there. So, we can look at different things.
All right. You guys came through for us last time with Woodruff. Initially, you had feelings against it. You didn't think it could work. Subsequently, you came back, messed with the data or manipulated the data or whatever it is that you did. Came back, changed your tune, allowed us to be in a position to address it.
We did not manipulate data. We did not manipulate data. The data showed that it was warranted. But we'll check here again, and we'll see.
All right.
If we can do anything.
This is exactly what I've been dealing with for over a year, is the hot potato. Let's go back and look.
You gotta come up to the microphone.
Could I ask that the council review this at the next meeting from now? It's been nothing but blow this off for years and years. And I wrote to the council 1 year ago asking this to be looked at, and it got bounced back. And now here I am a year later, and it's getting bounced around again. Could I ask at least that at the next 1 month from now, that we have a report with a cost estimate for sidewalks on the left and sidewalks on the right? And can I ask also that Mr. Bourbonnais address the ASHTO regulations and show us exactly why he thinks 400 feet is insufficient for a speed limit of 25 for a crosswalk?
Is that enough time? 1 month? All right. You got it.
Back and have it addressed by you again in 1 month?
You got it.
Thank you very much.
All right, this is.
All right, we're kind of getting outside our realm here.
What?
No. We limit it to the person who sent the communication. We allowed you to speak on it. We're concluding at this time. We're not going to do it.
During the communications, right?
You had the opportunity to speak at public comments. We opened it up. You did not speak. We gave you the opportunity here to speak already.
So, Catherine, you can
come back in 1 month. We can take this up again.
And you can certainly
have the
send us
opportunity
an
to come
email
here.
to towncouncil@southkingstonri.com.
All right.
I think the motion would be to continue to the matter to the June 24th meeting with reports from the department head.
So moved.
Second.
All right. We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. That passes. It's going to bring us to the end here. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. We got a motion and a second. Any discussion?